The wind moved gently through the cemetery as Charlotte stood before her mother's casket, one hand resting protectively on her belly. Her voice trembled as she whispered her final goodbye, a farewell she never imagined giving this early in her life. The choir hummed softly in the distance, but her world felt still, quiet in a way that settled deep in her chest. She felt Aaron beside her. For a moment she believed his presence would steady her. But when she looked up, his eyes were distant, troubled in a way she couldn't read. Before she could reach for him, he stepped back. Not a word, not a touch. He turned away from the grave and kept walking. Aaron? Her voice broke as she called after him. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He disappeared between the rows of headstones, while Charlotte stood frozen in grief, disbelief washing through her like cold water. Hours later, the ache in her chest hadn't eased. She sat quietly in the lawyer's office, her face still damp from tears she had never gotten the chance to fully wipe away. The room was calm, too calm, as if unaware of the emotional storm she carried inside. Mr. Crawford's expression softened as he slid a thick envelope across the desk. "Charlotte," he said gently, "your mother left you nearly $500 million. The words landed in silence. Heavy. Unexpected. Charlotte stared at him, unable to breathe, unable to speak, her entire life shifting without warning. Her world had broken, and now it was being rebuilt in a way she never saw coming. On the day Charlotte buried her mother, her husband walked away from her, unaware. She was minutes from inheriting a fortune that would change everything. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to watch them leave when you needed them the most? Charlotte thought her life was falling apart, abandoned, heartbroken, pregnant, alone. But what happens when the woman he walked away from becomes one of the wealthiest women in the city? And when he tries to come back, will she let him? Before we continue, before we dive into this unbelievable journey, please like this video so YouTube shows it to more people. And if you're new to Mr. Michael's Stories, subscribe. You won't regret it. Welcome back to Mr. Michael's Stories, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales, where yesterday's quiet sacrifices echo into today's hardest choices. Here, we unwrap the hidden truths of everyday lives, where family ties are tested, broken, and sometimes, miraculously, restored. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. Charlotte sat in the corner booth of the small diner a few blocks from the cemetery, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had already gone lukewarm. The quiet clatter of plates and the low hum of conversations felt painfully normal compared to the emotional storm in her chest. Marcus sat across from her, shoulders squared, trying to stay composed. For his daughter, even though grief settled heavily in his eyes. Imani slid into the seat beside Charlotte, rubbing her back gently in slow, steady circles. Charlotte stared at the table for a long time before finally whispering, "I still can't believe he walked away." There, of all places, Marcus clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around his coffee cup. "I don't know what got into him," he said quietly. "But leaving you at a moment like that, no real man does that." Imani glanced at Marcus and then back to Charlotte, her voice soft but firm. "You don't have to figure it all out today. You just buried your mother. Your heart's already overloaded." Charlotte blinked hard, eyes burning. "I thought he'd stand with me, even if we had problems, even if he didn't know what to say." She swallowed tightly. "I just didn't think he'd leave." Imani scooted closer, slipping her arm through Charlotte's. "You're not alone. I'm not going anywhere. Your dad's not going anywhere. But I need you to breathe, okay? One moment at a time." Charlotte nodded weakly, the neon diner lights reflecting off her glassy eyes. The emptiness beside her, where Aaron should have been, felt larger than the booth itself. Charlotte's breath trembled as she leaned back against the booth. "It hurts because I trusted him," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted him to stay, even if he didn't have the right words, even if he didn't know what to do." Marcus leaned forward, his voice deep and steady. "Charlotte, people show their true selves when life hits hard. It's easy to stay when everything's comfortable. What matters is who's still standing when everything falls apart." Charlotte looked at her father, eyes filled with disappointment she didn't know how to express. "I'm pregnant, Dad. I'm carrying his child. How could he just walk away from me, like I didn't exist?" Imani squeezed her hand gently. Some men run from things they don't understand. Some run from responsibility. Some run from their own fear, not from you. Charlotte shook her head slowly. But I wasn't asking him to fix anything. I just needed him to be there. Just stand there. That's all. Marcus exhaled heavily. You deserved his presence, not his back. The words settled between them like a truth Charlotte didn't want to accept. She wiped her cheeks, her voice cracking. I thought we were stronger than this. I thought he loved me enough to stay. Imani's voice softened. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to question everything. But don't you dare forget who you are. You come from strong people. You can carry heavy things, but you're not meant to carry them alone. Charlotte nodded faintly, the ache inside her deepening. Charlotte's phone buzzed for the third time in 10 minutes. She didn't need to look at the screen to know it was Aaron. His name flashing across her phone now felt like a blade twisting in a wound still too fresh to touch. Imani glanced at the vibrating phone. You gonna answer that? Charlotte shook her head without hesitation. No, not today. Marcus frowned. Did he say anything useful in the messages? Charlotte finally flipped the phone over, only to see a string of missed calls and one unread text preview. Charlotte, please, I didn't mean to walk away like that. Her chest tightened, but she locked the phone again. He had every chance to stay, every chance to say something. He made his choice. Imani nodded in quiet agreement. If he's truly sorry, he'll show it through actions, not messages sent after the damage. The phone buzzed again, persistent like a reminder of the shattered trust between them. Charlotte placed it face down on the table, pushing it slightly away. I can't deal with him right now. I can barely think straight. Marcus looked at her with fatherly seriousness. You don't owe him a response today. Let him sit with whatever he's feeling. You're allowed to protect your peace. Charlotte breathed out shakily. She wasn't ignoring him out of spite. She was ignoring him because answering would break her all over again. When the waitress came by to refill the cups, Charlotte managed a small nod, but her eyes were distant. The steam rising from the fresh tea blurred slightly as her vision swelled again with unshed tears. She inhaled, long and slow, trying to steady herself. I have to pull myself together, Charlotte whispered, almost to herself. Mom would have expected that from me. Imani turned toward her. You don't have to be strong every second. Just breathe. But Charlotte shook her head. If I fall apart now, I'm scared I won't be able to get back up. I can't let grief swallow everything. And I can't let what Aaron did become the thing that breaks me. Marcus studied her closely. He knew his daughter well enough to recognize that tone. Quiet, determined, but carrying a weight too heavy for one heart. Strength doesn't mean pretending you're fine, he said softly. It means walking through the hard moments and still choosing to move forward. Charlotte nodded, though her fingers trembled around the mug. She straightened her posture, wiped her cheeks again, and lifted her chin. I'll get through this, she said, voice tight. For the baby, for myself, for Mom. But her eyes told a different story. Behind the firmness was exhaustion. Behind the resolve was a wound still open. She was trying to stitch herself together with threads made of sheer will. Her phone buzzed once more. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she repeated quietly, I have to keep going. But when nobody was looking, her hand drifted to her stomach, and she whispered through the ache, I hope I'm enough for you. Inside, she felt herself breaking in places she didn't know how to mend. Later that evening, after leaving the diner, Charlotte sat quietly in the back seat of Marcus's car. The familiar streets of her neighborhood passed by. Brick buildings, local, shops, murals honoring community heroes, and each one tugged at a memory. Her mother had raised her in this community, surrounded by people who shaped her values. Sunday mornings at church, Wednesday night Bible study, block parties where music filled the streets, and older women who always had a word of encouragement ready. Her mother believed in the strength of community, in leaning on people who understood hardship and celebrated joy with equal enthusiasm. As Marcus drove, they passed the church where Charlotte had spent most of her childhood. Its white steps were chipped from years of foot traffic, and the tall stained glass windows glowed faintly in the evening light. She remembered standing in those pews beside her mother, singing hymns that lifted her spirit even on her hardest days. She remembered the church dinners where her mom would volunteer, feeding families who needed a warm meal. She remembered the elders who used to pat her head and say, "Baby, you're gonna do great things one day." She remembered her mother's laughter echoing through the hall during choir rehearsals. These memories were warm, but tonight they pressed against her heart with painful nostalgia. Imani had once joked that Charlotte's strength came from three things: her mother's guidance, her community's influence, and the church's teachings. Charlotte believed that. Those roots ran deep, but now, not only had she lost the woman who raised her with love and intention, she also lost the man she thought would stand with her when life became heavy. As Marcus turned into her apartment lot, Charlotte exhaled slowly. She felt the weight of her heritage, the resilience of the generations before her, but she also felt the crushing solitude that came from standing at the crossroads of grief and unexpected responsibility. Her community had taught her strength. Her upbringing had taught her endurance. But tonight, none of it numbed the ache of losing the two people she thought she could lean on. When Marcus and Imani finally left her apartment later that night, Charlotte stood in the doorway for a long moment before closing it gently behind them. The soft click of the lock echoed through the silence of the space. Her eyes drifted around the living room. Every corner felt unfamiliar, as if the absence of her mother and the sudden distance from Aaron had transformed the apartment into a place she didn't recognize. There were still baby items on the coffee table, tiny socks, a half-unpacked box of bottles, a folded blanket her mother had bought months ago. Charlotte reached for the blanket and pressed it to her face, inhaling the faint trace of her mother's perfume. Her breath broke. She sat on the couch, clutching the blanket, and let out a quiet sob, the kind that comes from a wound too deep for words. The silence around her grew heavy, settling like a thick fog. There was no Aaron pacing in the kitchen, no soft hum of her mother's voice leaving a message on her phone. Nothing but quiet. Her phone lit up again, Aaron calling. She let it ring until the screen went dark. She wasn't ready to hear his voice. Charlotte leaned back and stared at the ceiling, tears sliding into her hairline. "Mom," she whispered, "I don't know how to do this without you." She placed a hand on her belly. "And I don't know how to do this without him either." Her chest tightened as a wave of loneliness washed over her. She curled onto the couch, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. The night stretched on, unforgiving and long, and every hour reminded her that she had lost her mother forever. And her husband, at least for now. By the time dawn approached, Charlotte still hadn't slept. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was awake and aching. She whispered into the stillness, "I hope tomorrow hurts less than today." But deep down, she already knew tomorrow carried its own storm. As the first sliver of morning light crept through her curtains, Charlotte pushed herself upright on the couch. Her back ached from a night spent curled in grief. She reached for her phone to silence the alarms she had forgotten to turn off. That was when she saw the message from Mr. Crawford, the reminder about today's meeting regarding her mother's estate, the inheritance. A fresh wave of anxiety rose in her chest. Last night, she had tried not to think about it, but now the truth pressed against her ribs. $500 million, a number so large it didn't feel real. A number that could rebuild neighborhoods, create opportunities, change lives. A number that felt too big for someone whose heart was still in pieces. Charlotte stood slowly, placing a hand on her stomach again. "What am I supposed to do with all of this?" she whispered. Her mother had trusted her with something enormous, something powerful, and Charlotte wasn't sure she was ready for the weight that came with it. Wealth meant responsibility, decisions, pressure, people watching her every move. And now she had to carry that responsibility while navigating pregnancy, heartbreak, and grief all at once. A blessing, but one heavy enough to feel like a burden. She walked into the kitchen and turned on the light. The space felt too bright, too quiet, too empty. The contrast between her financial reality and her emotional state unsettled her. She had access to resources most people only dreamed of, yet she felt more alone than she had ever been. She imagined her mother's voice gently saying, "You'll rise to it, baby. You always do." Charlotte's chest tightened again. She didn't feel like someone who could rise. Not yet. The truth was simple but harsh. Her mother's gift would change her life, but not before. It forced her to confront every wound, every choice, every fear she carried. The blessing was undeniable, but the burden was already settling on her shoulders. She took a long breath and whispered to herself, "One step at a time." The next morning, Charlotte forced herself out of bed after barely an hour of sleep. Her eyes were swollen, her shoulders heavy, and her heart carried a weight she didn't know how to lift. She dressed slowly, pausing several times as overwhelming waves of sadness washed over her. But she pushed through them, knowing there was no avoiding the meeting Mr. Crawford had scheduled. Marcus waited for her in the lobby of her apartment building. When he saw the exhaustion on her face, he stepped forward and held her shoulders gently. "You ready, sweetheart?" "No," Charlotte admitted quietly. "But we have to go." He nodded, opened the passenger door of his car, and helped her in with a tenderness that made her eyes sting again. The drive to the attorney's office was quiet, except for the steady hum of traffic outside. It was the kind of silence that didn't ease tension, but sat thickly between them, made of the grief they both carried. When they arrived, Charlotte hesitated before getting out. She looked up at the tall glass building, feeling small under its height. "I wish Mom were here," she whispered. Marcus exhaled deeply. "So do I." Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. The elevator ride to the 6th floor felt too quick. Charlotte wasn't ready for the conversation she would have to face. When they reached Mr. Crawford's office, he stood from behind his desk and offered a gentle nod. "Charlotte, I'm very sorry for your loss," he said, his voice warm and steady. "Your mother spoke highly of you. She trusted you." The words brought a lump to Charlotte's throat. She sat in the chair across from him, feeling Marcus settle into the seat beside her. She folded her hands over her stomach, waiting for whatever news had brought her here. Mr. Crawford took a slow breath before reaching for a folder. What came next would change her life forever. Mr. Crawford opened the folder carefully, as though handling something delicate. Papers rustled softly as he arranged them neatly on his desk. Charlotte watched him, her nerves tightening. The room felt too still, too controlled, like it was holding its own breath with her. "Your mother prepared these documents over several years," he began. "She updated them regularly. She wanted to ensure everything would be handled exactly the way she intended." Charlotte blinked slowly. "I didn't even know she had anything complicated enough to update." Mr. Crawford offered a small, sympathetic smile. "Your mother was very private about her success. She didn't want her accomplishments to become a burden on you. She believed you deserved the chance to build a life freely, without pressure." Marcus nodded slightly. "That sounds like her. She didn't want the world in her daughter's pocket." Mr. Crawford continued, flipping to another page. "Your mother was incredibly disciplined. She invested consistently. She expanded quietly. She made strategic partnerships. She always thought long-term." Charlotte's brow furrowed. "I knew she worked hard, but I never saw anything that looked like that kind of wealth." "That was intentional," Mr. Crawford said. "She wanted you to have a normal life, free from expectations or people trying to take advantage of you. But she also believed deeply that when the time came, you would rise to the responsibilities she left behind." Charlotte shifted in her seat, her heartbeat quickening. Marcus looked over at her, sensing the tension. Mr. Crawford folded his hands. "What I'm about to tell you may feel overwhelming. If you need to pause at any point, that's completely fine." Charlotte swallowed hard, fingers tightening slightly over her belly. "Just tell me," she whispered. Mr. Crawford reached into the folder and pulled out a sealed envelope bearing her mother's handwriting. "Your mother left everything to you, Charlotte, and there is a great deal to discuss." Charlotte stared at the envelope, fear creeping into her chest. She had no idea yet how life-changing the contents were. When Mr. Crawford finally opened the envelope and placed the documents before her, Charlotte felt her breath catch. He pointed to the first page, a printed statement listing assets, accounts, business shares, and property holdings. "Charlotte," he said gently, "your mother left you nearly $500 million. Everything inside her went still. The words didn't land at once, not fully. They hovered in the air, too large to understand, too unreal to grasp. She stared at the paper, then at him, then at the numbers again, her mind refusing to connect them. That can't be right," she whispered. "It is accurate," Mr. Crawford assured. "Your mother built a remarkable portfolio over many years." Charlotte's eyes brimmed. Confusion hit first, fierce and disorienting. How could her mother live so modestly while holding on to something so enormous? Why keep something so life-changing a secret? Fear followed close behind. What did someone even do with money like that? How was she supposed to carry this responsibility alone? Then, anger flickered, small but real. Why didn't she tell me? Charlotte asked softly. Why didn't she prepare me for this? Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, but she barely felt it. Guilt crept in next, heavy and sharp. Her mother had left her so much, but Charlotte never got to thank her, never got to understand why, never got to say goodbye the right way. I don't deserve this, Charlotte whispered, tears falling freely now. I didn't do anything to earn it. Mr. Crawford shook his head with compassionate firmness. This wasn't a reward. It was a trust. Your mother believed in your judgment, your heart, and your ability to care for others. She knew you would handle this with wisdom. Charlotte pressed her palm against her eyes, overwhelmed. I don't even know who I am right now. Yesterday I had my mother. Yesterday I had a husband. And now everything is different. Her voice cracked on the last word. The world she knew had shifted in one cruel sweep. Marcus immediately moved closer, wrapping an arm around Charlotte as she cried quietly into her hands. He didn't rush her, didn't tell her to stop, didn't try to fix it. He just held his daughter the same way he used to when she scraped her knee as a child, steady, patient, present. Charlotte, he murmured, your mother loved you more than anything in this world. She made this choice because she believed you would do something meaningful with it. Charlotte leaned into him, her voice muffled. But I don't feel strong enough for this. I feel like everything is falling apart. I know it feels that way, Marcus said, rubbing her back. But you're not alone. I'm right here. And your mother didn't leave all of this to overwhelm you. She left it because she spent her whole life preparing you without you realizing it. Charlotte sniffed, lifting her head slightly. I don't know how to make decisions like this. I don't know how to live with this responsibility. You don't have to figure it all out today, Marcus replied softly, one step at a time, just like your mother taught you. Mr. Crawford gave her a respectful moment before adding, there's no deadline for your choices. You can take as much time as you need. Charlotte wiped her cheeks but didn't let go of her father's hand. His presence grounded her in a way nothing else could. Marcus squeezed her fingers. You survived yesterday. You survived last night. And you're sitting here today, listening, learning and facing the truth head on. That's strength, honey. Charlotte nodded slowly, absorbing his words. A shaky breath left her chest, but she sat up straighter. When the meeting ended, Charlotte stepped into the hallway feeling as though she were balancing two entirely different worlds, one collapsing behind her, the other rising too quickly beneath her feet. Wealth at this scale felt unreal, like numbers printed on paper rather than something she could reach out and touch. Yet the loneliness was painfully real. She walked beside Marcus toward the elevator, each step heavy. Dad, she said softly, how am I supposed to deal with this? How am I supposed to process being left with all this money, when I can't even process being left by Aaron? Marcus looked at her carefully. Both things landed at the same time, and both hurt in different ways. But those two things don't define you. You define you. Charlotte pressed the elevator button, staring at the glowing numbers above the door. I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions. Part of me is terrified of this responsibility, and part of me is terrified of the emptiness Aaron left behind. She stepped into the elevator and leaned against the wall. I'm carrying his child. I lost my mother. And now I'm supposed to be some kind of business owner and decision maker? Dad, I don't even know how to breathe right now. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't need to be everything today. Let yourself feel the weight, but don't let it crush you. One moment at a time. As the elevator descended, Charlotte rubbed her belly gently. How am I supposed to raise a child with all this on my shoulders? This inheritance should feel like a blessing, but right now it feels like too much. Marcus watched her with soft eyes. Burdens can become blessings when you grow into them. You'll find your balance. Trust yourself. Charlotte tried to inhale calmly, but her chest still felt tight. Emotion gathered behind her eyes again, and she fought to hold it back. She wasn't just struggling with fortune. She was struggling with loss, love, fear, and the sudden reality of standing alone. As she and Marcus stepped out of the building into the cool afternoon air, Charlotte's phone vibrated again. She hesitated before pulling it from her bag. After everything that had happened in the last 24 hours, She wasn't sure her heart could handle more, but when she looked at the screen, her breath caught. It was Aaron, not a missed call this time, a message. Her thumb hovered over the notification before she finally tapped it open. "Aaron, please, let me explain." Charlotte stared at the words, confusion and anger swirling with a tiny sliver of something she didn't want to acknowledge. Her pulse thudded in her ears. After abandoning her at her mother's funeral, after leaving her standing alone while carrying his child, after disappearing without a word, now he wanted to explain? Marcus saw the tension in her shoulders. "Is it him?" Charlotte nodded silently. "Do you want to respond?" he asked gently. She swallowed hard. "I don't know." She locked the phone without replying. The message stayed there on the screen, a small sentence holding a storm of consequences. Charlotte tucked the phone back into her purse, her expression tightening. Everything in her life had changed in the span of a day. Now, the man who broke her heart wanted another chance to speak. But whether she was ready to hear him, that was a question she couldn't answer yet. The ride back to Charlotte's apartment after the meeting at Mr. Crawford's office felt heavier than the morning had been. Marcus walked beside her up the steps, one hand resting lightly at her back, guiding her gently as though she were made of glass. When they entered her living room, Charlotte sank onto the couch, still overwhelmed by everything she had learned. A few minutes later, a soft knock sounded at the door. Marcus opened it to reveal Erwin Harrison, her mother's longtime business associate. He was a familiar presence, someone Charlotte remembered from childhood gatherings when her mother used to host community leaders. Today, however, Erwin's posture was somber, respectful. He held a large binder under his arm. "Charlotte," he greeted gently, "I'm sorry to come on such a difficult day, but your mother left very detailed instructions. She wanted you to understand what she built." Charlotte nodded, motioning him to sit. "I appreciate it," she said quietly. "I just don't know where to begin." Erwin placed the binder on the table and opened it carefully, revealing charts, letters, ownership documents, and notes written in her mother's handwriting. "Your mother wasn't just successful," Erwin explained. "She was strategic. She started small, one rental property, then two. Eventually, she formed Fields Urban Development, a company focused on affordable housing renovations and neighborhood retail spaces." Charlotte's eyes widened. She had known her mother owned some property, but nothing close to an entire operating company. Erwin continued, "She also founded Harvest Brew Cafe, the chain you've seen in several neighborhoods. It began as one location she loved, then expanded to 6. Marcus added gently, "Your mother always said that shop gave people work, gave folks a place to gather." Erwin nodded. "And there's more. Investment portfolios, partnerships, community grants she funded anonymously." He paused and looked at Charlotte with quiet admiration. "She trusted you to lead all this." Charlotte pressed a hand to her stomach, her heart pounding. The scale of her mother's world was unfolding before her eyes, and it felt like stepping into shoes far larger than she believed she could fill. Erwin flipped to another section of the binder, a detailed overview of Fields Urban Development. The pages showed building plans, renovation budgets, photographs of completed projects, and handwritten notes her mother had personally marked. "Your mother specialized in revitalizing older properties," Erwin said. "She believed that improving living spaces could change the future of entire blocks." Charlotte traced her fingers along her mother's handwriting beneath a picture of a renovated apartment complex. "Make it safe, make it home." She blinked back a fresh wave of emotion. Erwin continued, "These buildings aren't luxury units. They're meant for working families. Your mother made enough profit to stay afloat, but her real goal was fairness." Marcus nodded. "She never wanted to price people out of their own neighborhoods." Erwin turned a few more pages. "Now the coffee shops. Harvest Brew Cafe is profitable, but what your mother valued most was how many people it employed. Students, single parents, retirees. She loved giving folks a second chance." Charlotte smiled faintly. She remembered her mother bringing home muffins from one of the cafes after evening meetings. "And the investments?" she asked. Erwin exhaled softly. "Strong, diversified, stocks, clean energy funds, small business partnerships, nothing risky, everything deliberate." Charlotte felt a knot in her chest. Her mother had built a vast, thoughtful legacy, quietly, without boasting, without revealing how much she carried alone. "This is incredible," Charlotte whispered. "She did all this while raising me, and still had time to take care of everyone else." Erwin closed the binder with a gentle thud. "She built an empire rooted in helping people. And she wanted you to continue that mission, in your own way." Charlotte felt the weight settle deeper. Not financial, emotional. Her mother had entrusted her with the work of a lifetime. Charlotte leaned back into the couch, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything she had just seen. The binder sat open on the table, the pages spread out like pieces of her mother's mind, organized, intentional, loving. "It's too much," Charlotte whispered. "I don't know how she handled all this." Marcus sat beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "She handled it the same way you will, one step at a time." "But I'm pregnant, Dad," she said quietly. "I'm grieving, I'm exhausted, and now I'm supposed to manage buildings, businesses, investments, things I've never even touched before." Erwin nodded with empathy. "Your mother never expected you to understand everything immediately. She left advisory teams, accountants, managers, all trained to support you. You're not alone in this." Charlotte looked down at her hands. They trembled slightly. "I want to honor her, but I don't want to fail her." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You won't fail her. She raised you to be capable. She didn't prepare these documents last week. She prepared them over years because she knew the day would come when you were ready." Charlotte closed her eyes. Determination began to form beneath the fear. She didn't feel strong, not yet, but she felt something new, a spark, faint but real. "I'll learn it," she whispered. "I'll figure it out. I'll make her proud." Erwin smiled softly. That's all she ever wanted. After Erwin left, Charlotte remained on the couch, staring at the binder, as though it held answers she hadn't yet learned how to read. Marcus stayed quiet, giving her space. Eventually, Charlotte exhaled shakily. "Why didn't she tell me?" she murmured. "Why didn't Mom let me help her? Why didn't she trust me with something this important while she was alive?" Marcus looked at her gently. "She trusted you more than anyone. That's why she left it to you." "But she kept it from me," Charlotte insisted, emotion rising in her voice. "All these buildings, businesses, partnerships. She carried all of it alone. Why didn't she share the burden with me? Why didn't she let me support her?" Marcus sighed. "Your mother wanted you to have a normal life. She didn't want you carrying weight that wasn't yours yet." Charlotte shook her head. "But what if she struggled? What if she needed help and didn't want to tell me? What if she hid things so I wouldn't worry?" Marcus lowered his gaze. "She did struggle sometimes. Building anything worthwhile takes sacrifice, but she didn't hide things because she doubted you. She hid them because she loved you." Charlotte pressed her palm to her stomach, feeling her heartbeat thrum against her skin. "I wish she'd trusted me enough to let me carry some of it with her." Marcus reached for her hand again. "Charlotte, she trusted you enough to give you everything she created. That's not secrecy. That's faith." Charlotte breathed deeply, letting his words sink in, but the ache in her chest remained. Love and confusion twisted together inside her. "I just wish I had known," she whispered. "I wish I had more time with her." The moment was quiet, too quiet, when a sudden knock echoed through the apartment. Charlotte stiffened instantly. Marcus stood, cautious. "Stay here," he said, walking toward the door. When he opened it, Charlotte's breath caught. Aaron stood in the doorway. He looked different, drawn, exhausted, wearing the same suit from the funeral but wrinkled as though he hadn't slept. His eyes flickered immediately to Charlotte behind Marcus. "Can I talk to her?" he asked softly. Marcus's jaw tightened. "This isn't a good time." Aaron swallowed hard. "I know, but I need to explain. Please." Charlotte rose slowly from the couch, her heart pounding. "What are you doing here?" Aaron stepped inside only when Marcus reluctantly moved aside. His gaze settled on Charlotte, full of regret, fear, and something that looked painfully like longing. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Charlotte's voice trembled. "You left me at my mother's funeral." "I know," he said quickly, his voice cracking. "I panicked. I didn't know how to handle your father's words. I didn't know if I belonged there. I didn't want to make anything worse." "You already did," Charlotte said sharply. Tears welled in Aaron's eyes. "I shouldn't have walked away. I should have stayed. I should have been with you." Marcus stood behind Charlotte, like a silent wall of protection. Aaron continued, I came as soon as I heard about the inheritance. Not because of the money, I swear. I heard everything's changing for you, and it made me realize how badly I handled yesterday. Charlotte clenched her jaw. I'm not ready to hear your reasons. Aaron nodded slowly, defeated. I understand, but I needed you to see me trying. Charlotte's voice softened, just a fraction. Trying starts with not walking away. Aaron lowered his eyes. The tension in the room was thick and painful, but necessary. Charlotte felt something inside her shift. This was far from over, but it was far from healed. Aaron stood in the living room, hands shaking slightly as he tried to steady his breathing. The moment he walked through Charlotte's door, he realized just how much damage he had caused. The silence between them felt sharp, and Charlotte's guarded posture told him everything. He was on thin ice, and rightfully so. I know you don't want to see me, Aaron began, voice low. And I don't blame you. Charlotte crossed her arms, staring at him with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. Marcus stood behind her, not saying a word but making it very clear that Aaron had no room for mistakes. Aaron swallowed hard. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because I froze. Your dad's tone, the tension, the pressure in the moment. My chest tightened, and my mind started spinning. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to make things worse no matter what I did. Charlotte's jaw clenched. So walking away was better? No, Aaron replied quickly. It was the worst thing I could have done. I see that now. I hate that moment. I replay it constantly. The look on your face. He paused, voice trembling. I never meant to abandon you. He stepped forward slightly but stopped when Marcus's expression hardened. I should have stayed, Aaron continued. I should have stood by you, no matter how uncomfortable I felt. I should have been a husband, not a coward. Charlotte's eyes softened just barely, but only from exhaustion, not forgiveness. Aaron wiped his palms on his pants. I'm not here to excuse what I did. I'm here to own it. I was scared. But that fear was mine. I never should have let it fall on you. The room stayed still. Charlotte took in his words, her heartbeat steady but heavy. She didn't forgive him. Not yet, but she heard him. Charlotte sank slowly onto the edge of the couch, needing to sit before her emotions overwhelmed her again. Aaron stayed where he was, hands at his sides, waiting for her to speak. Marcus lingered in the background, quietly watching his daughter's face shift between conflicting emotions. Charlotte looked at Aaron, her voice breaking slightly. Do you have any idea what it felt like? Standing there beside my mother's casket. And you walked away from me? While I was holding our child? Aaron shut his eyes in shame. I know, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. Charlotte let out a shaky breath. Part of me wants to scream at you. Part of me wants to make you feel everything I felt yesterday, and another part. She hesitated, her gaze softening. Another part still remembers the man I married. That admission hit Aaron hard. His shoulders dropped, a mixture of pain and hope flickering in his expression. I love you, Charlotte, he said quietly. Even when I mess up, even when I don't deserve your forgiveness, I love you. Charlotte shook her head. Love isn't the issue. Trust is. Yesterday shattered something in me. I don't know if I can give you the same access to my heart that you had before, not without risking everything. Aaron stepped 1 foot closer. Marcus tensed, but Charlotte lifted a hand slightly, signaling it was okay. I'm not asking you to trust me today, Aaron said. I'm asking for the chance to earn it back, piece by piece. Charlotte sighed deeply, her hand resting on her stomach. You hurt me, Aaron, not just emotionally. You hurt my sense of safety. You hurt my belief that I could depend on you. Aaron nodded slowly. Then let me rebuild it. Charlotte stared at him, torn down the middle. She wanted to push him away. She wanted to pull him close. She wanted both and neither at the same time. That's what made it so painful. The room grew quiet again, broken only by the sound of a passing car outside. Aaron took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Charlotte, he said softly, tell me what you need from me. Tell me what you need to feel safe again. Charlotte's shoulders slumped as fatigue washed over her. She rubbed her forehead and spoke honestly. I need honesty, consistency, presence. I need to know that when life hits hard, you won't walk away. I won't, Aaron said quickly. You did, Charlotte countered. her voice gentle but sharp. Aaron lowered his eyes. I know, and that's something I'll have to live with. But I want to show you that moment doesn't define me. I want to show you I can be the man you thought you married. Charlotte inhaled slowly. I want to believe that. I do. But belief and reality aren't lining up right now. Aaron nodded. Then let me build the bridge. Marcus finally spoke, stepping slightly forward. Actions, Aaron, not words. Words don't mean anything unless they're backed up. Aaron nodded respectfully. I understand. Charlotte's voice softened. I'm hurting, Aaron. I'm grieving my mother. I'm pregnant. I'm terrified. And right now, part of me still loves you deeply, but part of me doesn't recognize you. I'll earn that recognition back, Aaron whispered. I'll show up. I'll do the things I should have done. Charlotte blinked slowly. If you disappear again, even once, that's it. I won't survive another abandonment. Aaron's eyes shined with remorse. You won't go through anything alone again. Not if I can help it. Charlotte held his gaze. He meant every word, but meaning wasn't the same as proof. Charlotte straightened her posture, her decision forming clearly in her expression. Aaron noticed the shift instantly. Aaron, she said, steady but calm. You can't just walk back into my life as though yesterday didn't happen. Things broke. I broke. Aaron nodded slowly. I know. I'm not ready to take you back, she said. I'm not ready to trust you the way I did before. A small flicker of disappointment crossed his face, but he didn't argue. He didn't plead. He simply listened. Charlotte continued. If you want to rebuild this marriage, you'll do it the slow way. No pressure, no expectations. You'll earn your place back in my life with consistency, not promises. Aaron swallowed. I accept that. She nodded. We will talk, we will communicate, but until I feel safe again, we're not going back to the way things were. Marcus watched approvingly, not because he wanted them apart, but because Charlotte was claiming her strength. Aaron spoke gently. Whatever boundaries you set, I'll respect them. Good, Charlotte said. Because this time, it's my heart on the line, and it's our child's future. Aaron's eyes softened toward her belly. I want to be in this baby's life. I want to be the father he or she can depend on. I want to be better. Charlotte's lips quivered slightly. Then show me. Aaron nodded. I will. Charlotte's voice dropped to a whisper. But right now, we're not okay. Not yet. Aaron accepted the truth, with a slow inhale. Then I'll work for okay. She gave a faint nod. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't rejection. It was the beginning of a slow, cautious rebuild. A few days later, Charlotte received an invitation to a charity gala her mother had supported for years. Marcus offered to accompany her, but Charlotte surprised herself by asking Aaron, not as her husband, not as her partner, as someone who needed to see her world, and someone whose world she needed to see more clearly. They arrived separately, as Charlotte insisted, but entered the venue around the same time. The ballroom was filled with people from Aaron's professional circle, executives, donors, entrepreneurs, most of them white, most dressed in sleek tailored suits or shimmering gowns. Charlotte felt a slight tug of discomfort. These were Aaron's people, not hers. Aaron stepped beside her. I'm glad you came, he said softly. I came to honor my mother, Charlotte replied. And to observe. Observe? Aaron asked gently. Charlotte nodded. I need to understand every part of your world before I decide if we can reconnect ours. Aaron accepted that with surprising humility. Throughout the evening, Aaron introduced her to colleagues who had known him for years. They spoke about projects he'd worked on, moments he excelled, times he led difficult teams. They painted a picture of Aaron as capable, respected, someone deeply admired in his field. Charlotte watched him interact, confident yet earnest, professional yet warm. This was a side of Aaron she'd seen before, but never understood the full depth of. She realized he was someone who carried pressure differently, someone who felt expectations pressing from all directions. At one point, Aaron turned to her during a quiet moment and said, I want you to know the parts of me I never explained well. I wasn't raised to express fear. I was raised to lock it down, smile, and keep going. It's not an excuse, but it is part of why I failed you. Charlotte listened, but didn't respond immediately. She needed time to absorb everything she was learning. But something softened in her as she watched him interact with others. a small reminder of why she fell in love with him in the first place. By the time the gala neared its end, Charlotte felt mentally drained, but not in the painful way she had expected. Instead, she felt a sense of clarity forming slowly, quietly. Aaron approached her near the refreshment table, offering her a glass of sparkling water. "Your mom would be proud of you tonight," he said softly. "You carried yourself with grace." Charlotte accepted the glass. She always believed in presenting yourself with dignity, no matter how messy life feels. Aaron nodded. "I'm trying to learn that." "From you?" Charlotte didn't smile, but something in her expression eased. "Tonight didn't erase anything, but it helped me understand you a little better." Aaron inhaled slowly. "That means more than you know." For a brief moment they stood close enough to feel the familiarity between them, but not close enough to cross the boundaries Charlotte set. It was a careful space, a respectful one. As guests began to leave, Aaron walked with her toward the exit. "Can I check on you tomorrow?" he asked. "Just a message, nothing more." Charlotte thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "A message is fine." Aaron looked relieved, almost grateful. "Thank you." When she stepped into her car, Charlotte exhaled deeply. She wasn't healed. She wasn't ready to forgive. But tonight proved something. Healing didn't require rushing. It required understanding. And she was just beginning, to see a path forward. A week after the gala, Charlotte agreed to meet Aaron at a baby supply store. Not as a couple, just two expectant parents trying to prepare for their child. She arrived early, walking slowly through the aisles, lined with pastel blankets, tiny shoes, and baby bottles. The soft music in the background eased a little of her tension, but the heaviness in her chest hadn't disappeared. Aaron arrived a few minutes later, slightly out of breath as if he'd jogged from his car. "Thank you for meeting me," he said gently. Charlotte nodded. "Let's focus on the baby today." He smiled, relieved, and followed her into the first aisle. Car seats. He stopped dead in front of a high-tech model with built-in Bluetooth features. "This one plays lullabies and adjusts temperature automatically," Aaron said, reading the tag. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Is it raising the child too? Because it looks like it might." Aaron laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Okay, maybe it's a little much." "A little?" Charlotte repeated, amused despite herself. He pointed to another model, simpler, sturdier. "What about this one?" Charlotte inspected it, pressing gently on the padding. "It looks safe, reliable." Aaron grinned. "Two words I'm trying to live by." She ignored the personal tone, but her lips twitched slightly. They moved on to strollers next. Aaron tried to unfold one, only to snap a latch wrong and nearly pinch his fingers. He jerked his hand back with a hiss. Charlotte burst into laughter for the first time in days, a warm, spontaneous sound that caught both of them off guard. "You okay?" she asked, still smiling. "Yeah," he groaned. "Just wounded my ego." Charlotte shook her head, amused. "You've survived worse." They ended up comparing tiny baby socks after that, debating between pastel yellow and soft green. Aaron held up a pair shaped like little bears. "Tell me this isn't the cutest thing you've ever seen." Charlotte chuckled again. "Okay, that is pretty cute." For a moment, they weren't a fractured couple. They were two people preparing for a life they had created together, awkward, tender, and cautiously hopeful. On Sunday morning, Charlotte's church held a community service dedicated to mothers who had passed on. Marcus invited Aaron to attend, and Charlotte didn't object. She wanted to see how he'd handle being in a space that meant everything to her, and her upbringing. Aaron showed up wearing a navy button-down shirt and dress shoes, far too shiny for the occasion. Marcus glanced at his feet and chuckled. "You're gonna blind someone with those." Aaron flushed. "I wasn't sure what to wear." Inside the church, the atmosphere was warm and lively. The choir rehearsed softly before the service, harmonies drifting beautifully through the room. Elder women greeted Charlotte with hugs and gentle pats on her belly. One of them looked at Aaron and smiled knowingly. "So you're the husband who disappeared and came back, hmm?" Aaron froze. Charlotte nearly choked. Marcus coughed into his hand to hide a laugh. The woman shrugged. "Life happens. Just make sure she's all right." Aaron nodded vigorously. "Yes, ma'am. I'm trying." The service began, filled with heartfelt music and testimonies. Charlotte stood between Marcus and Aaron, letting the voices wash over her. When the choir launched into an upbeat song, the entire congregation clapped in rhythm. Aaron tried. He truly did. But his clapping was offbeat by at least half a second. Charlotte glanced sideways at him. He was concentrating so hard that she couldn't help but smile. Then came the moment that nearly broke her composure. One of the choir leaders shouted, "Come on, everybody!" And Aaron, thinking it was his cue, tried to sway along. He swayed the wrong way. Charlotte bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Marcus looked like he was holding his breath. Even a few choir members smiled at Aaron's earnest effort. After the song ended, Aaron whispered, "Was I that bad?" Charlotte whispered back, "You were trying. That's what matters." Outside after the service, several members stopped to greet him. They weren't judging. They were welcoming him in the way her community always had, warmly, openly, sincerely. As they walked toward the car, Aaron said softly, "Your world is beautiful, Charlotte." She looked at him, eyes softening. It's home. And for the first time, he felt like he wanted to belong there. Over the next few days, Charlotte watched Aaron closely, not suspiciously, but carefully. She needed to see if his new words matched his actions. She needed evidence of stability, not temporary effort. He texted each morning just to check on her. He didn't push. He didn't beg. He didn't slip into old habits. He simply showed up, consistently, gently, respectfully. One afternoon, Charlotte invited him to meet her at the community center her mother once helped build. She watched him quietly as he helped stack donated supplies, talking kindly to volunteers. She noticed how he greeted people, how he listened, how he tried to understand the environment that shaped so much of who she was. Later, as they stood near the entrance, Charlotte asked, "Why are you really doing all of this?" Aaron took a breath. "Because I don't want to be the man who left you. I want to be the man who learns from his mistakes, the man who stays, even when he's scared." Charlotte looked at him with a mixture of hope and caution. "Actions matter more than intentions." "I know," he said. "So I'm choosing actions." She nodded slowly. "I'm watching." "I want you to," he replied softly. That night, she lay in bed thinking about the changes she'd seen. Aaron wasn't perfect, not even close, but he was trying in ways she had never seen before. And the truth she had been avoiding began to rise inside her. She still loved him, deeply, quietly, stubbornly, but love alone wasn't enough. Trust had to be rebuilt. Not rebuilt with speed, rebuilt with care. Later that week, Charlotte invited Aaron to join her for a walk in the park near her apartment. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the path, and the air smelled faintly of fresh grass. It was peaceful, exactly what her heart needed. They walked slowly, not touching, not rushing, just sharing space. Charlotte finally said, "There's something I want to tell you." Aaron's shoulders tensed slightly. "Okay." She stopped near a bench, resting a hand on her belly before meeting his eyes. "I never stopped loving you." The words hit him hard. His eyes softened immediately, relief flickering across his features. "Charlotte, but," she continued gently, "that doesn't mean I'm ready to trust you the way I used to. Love didn't die, but trust cracked, and I need time, real time, to see if you can be the man this family needs." Aaron nodded slowly, the seriousness settling into his expression. "I understand, and I'll wait. I'll prove myself, not with speeches, but with consistency." Charlotte looked down briefly. "I want us to work. I want our child to grow up in a home where both parents stand strong. But I won't force something broken to look whole." "You don't have to," Aaron replied. "We'll rebuild it, together, at your pace." Charlotte inhaled gently. "Thank you for not rushing me." He offered a faint smile. "Thank you for giving me a chance at all." They resumed walking, the evening breeze shifting softly around them. For the first time since the funeral, Charlotte felt a quiet sense of direction, not certainty, not perfection, but movement toward healing. And that was enough for now. Saturday afternoon brought the kind of warmth that drew people out onto porches and sidewalks. Charlotte arrived with Marcus at Aunt Vanessa's house, a woman known in the family for throwing cookouts you could smell from 3 blocks away. The music was already vibrating through the air, the grill smoking on the back patio and cousins running around laughing with plates full of cornbread. Aunt Vanessa spotted Charlotte the moment she stepped into the yard. "Baby, come here," she hollered, waving a large spatula like a traffic controller. She enveloped Charlotte in a long hug, resting a hand on her belly. "You glowing. Pregnancy looks good on you." Charlotte smiled, comforted instantly by her aunt's familiar presence. Vanessa was loud, loving, and unapologetically herself, a walking reminder of the power of community. People greeted Charlotte with warmth and support. Several aunties made sure her plate was full before she could argue. The smell of ribs, baked beans, seasoned wings, and grilled vegetables filled the air. Old-school soul music played from speakers near the back steps, Aretha, Marvin, Luther, setting the tone for a beautiful afternoon. Children darted between adults while older men argued over a domino table. Everything about the scene reflected the culture Charlotte grew up in. Loud, loving, flavorful, honest, familiar. She felt the tension in her shoulders ease. This was home. This was healing. A few minutes later, she heard a low murmur ripple through the backyard. "Aaron's here." Charlotte turned, and there he stood near the gate, holding a container of store-bought potato salad with the most uncertain expression she had ever seen on his face. Aunt Vanessa crossed her arms dramatically. "Lord, he brought potato salad? Who told him that was allowed?" Charlotte stifled a laugh. Marcus muttered, "At least he tried." The entire yard paused, not hostile, just curious. Aaron was stepping into a space he had never belonged to before, and every eye was watching to see how he would navigate it. Charlotte exhaled softly. "Here we go," she whispered to herself. Aaron approached slowly, clearly unsure if he should smile, wave, or simply stand still until someone instructed him. Marcus greeted him with a nod, neutral, not warm, but not cold either. That was progress. Aunt Vanessa walked straight up to him, eyeing the potato salad container like it had insulted her personally. "You brought this?" Aaron swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. I thought—" She cut him off. "Baby, we don't eat potato salad unless it's made by somebody we trust. And no offense, we don't trust you yet." Aaron blinked, then nodded respectfully. "Fair enough." A couple of uncles fought to hold in laughter. One whispered, "At least he didn't bring raisins." Charlotte covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Aaron cleared his throat. "What should I do with it?" Aunt Vanessa grabbed it and set it aside like an unwanted gift at Christmas. "We'll figure it out later." The yard erupted in laughter. To his credit, Aaron took it well. He even smiled. Noted, "No potato salad next time." Charlotte watched him from the side, surprised at how relaxed he seemed, despite being surrounded by people who were openly sizing him up. After the initial awkwardness, a group of kids ran past him. One bumped into his leg. "Sorry, mister." Aaron crouched down. "Hey, you okay?" The kid nodded before sprinting away again. An older uncle sitting at the domino table called out, "You any good with these bones, white boy?" Aaron hesitated. "I can learn?" Everyone laughed again, but this time with amusement, not judgment. Marcus pushed out a chair. "Sit down. Let's see what you got." To Charlotte's shock, Aaron sat. The table of uncles leaned in like sharks, circling a minnow. 5 minutes later, Aaron was sweating, trying to follow the rapid-fire commentary. "That ain't the one. Why you holding it like that? Put it down before you embarrass yourself." Charlotte doubled over laughing. She couldn't help it. But what moved her most was how he stayed. Earnest, humble, trying. He wasn't pretending. He was showing up. And her family saw it. Charlotte sat beneath the shade of a large umbrella, watching Aaron navigate her world with genuine effort. He didn't speak over anyone. He didn't try to dominate conversations. He listened. He laughed at himself when he messed up. He accepted teasing with grace. When a group of kids asked him to join their relay race across the lawn, Aaron said, "Only if Charlotte says it's okay." The kids turned to her in unison. "Auntie Charlotte, can he play?" She raised an eyebrow. "He can play if he doesn't break anything, including himself." Aaron gave her a playful glare. Noted. He joined the relay, nearly tripping in the grass but catching himself at the last second. The children screamed with laughter. Charlotte laughed too, openly, freely. In that moment, she didn't see the man who walked away from the funeral. She saw the man she married, the man who loved children, the man who used to dance with her in the kitchen, the man who held her hand during storms and kissed her forehead when she doubted herself. Seeing him like this, trying, vulnerable, honest, softened something in her. Aunt Vanessa slid into the chair beside her, chewing on a chicken wing. "You still love that man," she said bluntly. Charlotte sighed. "Auntie, please. I'm not blind. You look at him the same way you looked at him when you first brought him home." Vanessa nudged her gently. "Love is messy. Forgiveness is work. But that boy is trying harder than half the men I've seen in my life." Charlotte swallowed. "Trying doesn't erase the pain." "No," Vanessa agreed. "But trying shows he wants to heal it." Charlotte's eyes drifted back to Aaron, now helping a little girl tie her shoelace. "I want to believe in him again," Charlotte whispered. Vanessa nodded. "Then let him earn that belief." For the first time in weeks, Charlotte felt the faint warmth of hope. As the sun began to set, people drifted indoors to pack leftover food. Charlotte went inside to help Vanessa, leaving Aaron outside by the grill. Marcus walked over to him slowly, wiping his hands on a towel. His expression was calm, but firm, the kind of calm that carried weight. Aaron straightened immediately. "Mr. Fields." Marcus nodded once. "Walk with me." They stepped to the side of the yard, away from the laughter and music. Marcus folded his arms, watching Aaron carefully. "You handled yourself well today," Marcus began. "You didn't run. You didn't shrink. You respected everyone here." Aaron nodded, unsure where the conversation was heading. "But I need to say something," Marcus continued, his tone low but steady. "My daughter has been through enough. Losing her mother nearly broke her. And what you did—" He paused, letting the meaning hang in the air. "You added a wound she didn't deserve." Aaron lowered his eyes, guilt flooding through him. "I know. And I'm trying to fix it." Marcus stepped closer, his voice tightening, not hostile, but protective. "Trying is not enough. If you hurt her again, if you break her trust again, I will not stay quiet. That is not a threat. That is a promise from a father who loves his child." Aaron swallowed, nodding slowly. "I understand. And I won't hurt her again. I mean that." Marcus held his gaze for a long moment, measuring the sincerity in Aaron's eyes. After a tense silence, he finally spoke. "Then don't just mean it. Live it." Aaron straightened his posture. "I will." Marcus studied him one last time before turning back toward the house. "Good, because she's trying too. And she deserves better than disappointment." Aaron watched Marcus walk away, the weight of responsibility settling deeper into his chest. He understood clearly now. Winning Charlotte back wasn't just about love. It was about honor, about becoming the man she and their child needed. 2 days after the cookout, Charlotte agreed to meet Aaron for an evening walk by the river. The sun had just dipped below the skyline, leaving streaks of orange and gold across the water. Charlotte wore a loose sweater and soft maternity leggings, while Aaron kept his hands tucked nervously into his jacket pockets. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore. It was gentle, like both were learning how to speak again. Aaron glanced at her as they walked. "Your aunt's cookout was something." Charlotte smirked. "You survived. That's impressive. I think your uncle is still mad I didn't know how to play dominoes." "He'll forgive you," she teased. "Eventually." Aaron chuckled softly. "Being around your family felt grounding. Like being in a place where people don't pretend. They say what they feel, even if it stings." Charlotte nodded. "It's how I grew up. Honesty first, feelings second." Aaron slowed his steps, allowing her to move at a comfortable pace. "I miss this," he said quietly. "Walking with you. Talking about simple things." Charlotte's heart fluttered, but she stayed steady. "We lost Simple when you walked away, Aaron." "I know," he admitted, his voice heavy. "But I want to earn it back. Not rush it, not demand it. Just earn it." She looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the man she fell in love with flashed through the layers of regret and tension. They reached a bench beneath a lamppost. Charlotte sat down, her hand resting on her belly. Aaron hesitated before sitting beside her, keeping a respectful distance. He looked at her with soft eyes. "Can I?" He gestured toward her belly. Charlotte took a breath, then nodded. Aaron placed his hand gently over hers. The baby kicked lightly, and Aaron's eyes widened with awe. "She's strong," Charlotte whispered. "So is her mother," Aaron replied. It wasn't physical intimacy. It wasn't rushed emotion. It was warmth, long overdue and deeply felt. For the first time in a long time, Charlotte didn't pull away. An unexpected drizzle began to fall. Cool and refreshing. Charlotte laughed softly as she held her hands out to feel the rain. Aaron stood and held his jacket above her head instinctively, shielding her from the droplets. "You'll get wet," Charlotte said. "I don't mind," Aaron replied. "I just don't want you catching a cold." They hurried beneath the awning of a nearby riverside cafe, standing close but not touching. Rain streaked down the windows, creating a soft rhythm around them. Charlotte crossed her arms lightly. Rain always made Mom calm. She said it washed thoughts clean. Aaron looked at her with tender admiration. "You remind me of her." She blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" "You carry people," he said. "Their worries, their emotions, their fears, and you make space for them, even when you're hurting." He looked down at her belly. "You're doing all of that, while growing a child, while grieving, while trying to stay strong." Charlotte's throat tightened. His voice wasn't dramatic. It was sincere, warm, almost reverent. "You don't give yourself enough credit," Aaron continued. "You're powerful, Charlotte. Brave. Gentle in ways most people can't be. Watching you handle everything these past weeks." He exhaled slowly. "It makes me respect you even more." The words landed heavily, tenderly, honestly. Charlotte felt her defenses soften in the quiet, rain-soaked moment. "I don't feel strong, Aaron." He stepped slightly closer, not touching her, but close enough to comfort. "Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed. Sometimes it's surviving heartbreak. Sometimes it's choosing to try again when everything inside you wants to shut down." She breathed shakily. "I'm trying." "I see that," Aaron said. "And I want to match your effort, not with big speeches but with daily proof." Charlotte looked up at him, rain reflecting the lamplight in shimmering patterns. His sincerity reached her in a way she hadn't expected. Rain softened the world around them, but it sharpened the truth standing between them. There was still love. There was still possibility. There was still unfinished business in their hearts. Charlotte whispered, "I want to hope again." Aaron swallowed. "Then I'll protect that hope." Their eyes held each other in the quiet glow of the rain. If you're still listening and enjoying this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video. It truly helps this channel grow and reach more people who love stories like this. Thank you. Over the next week, something subtle yet steady formed between them. Hope, small but unmistakable. Aaron sent morning check-in texts. "How are you feeling today? Need anything?" Charlotte didn't always reply immediately, but she noticed the consistency. They went on short walks in the evenings, sometimes talking, sometimes sharing quiet moments. The silence no longer felt awkward. It felt safe. One afternoon, they sat on Charlotte's couch assembling a baby swing that looked far more complicated than the picture on the box. Aaron held one piece upside down, frowning. "This can't be right. Why does the manual look like it was written by someone who's never seen a baby?" Charlotte laughed. "You're holding the leg backward." "No, I'm not." "Wait." "Yes, I definitely am." She leaned over to help him, their hands brushing lightly. Neither pulled away. It was small, barely a touch, but it carried meaning. Later that day, he cooked dinner in her kitchen. Nothing fancy, just a simple chicken and vegetable dish. Charlotte watched from the table as he moved around, tying her apron around his waist since she couldn't reach the straps comfortably with her belly. "You know," she said softly, "you're not bad at this." Aaron glanced at her with a playful smirk. "Cooking, or earning back your trust?" "Both," she admitted. His expression softened. "I'm trying. Every day." And he was. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't rush her healing. He simply showed up, time and time again. One evening, after washing dishes together, Charlotte felt a flutter inside her chest, warm and unexpected. She realized she didn't dread his presence anymore. She didn't brace herself for disappointment. She didn't feel deserted. She felt supported, and that seed of hope began to grow. It was late in the evening when Charlotte found herself sitting on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below. Aaron joined her quietly, handing her a warm cup of herbal tea. "Didn't know if you wanted company," he said gently. "So I brought some, just in case." Charlotte accepted the cup. "Company is okay tonight." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the cool air settle around them. Charlotte rested one hand on her belly as the baby rolled gently. Aaron watched with softened eyes. Every time I see that, I'm amazed. You're going to be a good father, Charlotte said before she could stop herself. Aaron blinked, touched. I hope so. You will, she said. I can see your heart changing. He turned to her, emotion rising in his voice. It's because of you. You make me want to be better. You always have. Charlotte's eyes drifted over his face, tired, remorseful, genuine. This wasn't the man who walked away at the funeral. This was the version of Aaron who existed before fear clouded his judgment. The man who once held her like she was the safest place he'd ever known. She inhaled slowly. Aaron, I don't know where this is going, but I'm willing to take one step forward. Aaron's voice was soft. Then, I'll walk beside you, one step at a time. Charlotte leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. Not fully, not a surrender, but a beginning. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't a full return to love, but it was the first honest bridge they'd built since everything fell apart. For the first time since her mother's passing, Charlotte allowed herself to feel warmth. She allowed herself to believe healing was possible, not in a rush, not in a wave, but through slow, steady kindness. She whispered, I'm ready to try again. And Aaron exhaled, relieved and grateful. The future was still uncertain, but hope had finally taken root. It was close to midnight when Charlotte woke with a sharp tightening pressure across her belly. At first, she thought it was another round of discomfort, something she had grown used to in the final weeks of pregnancy. But when the second contraction came, stronger and more deliberate, she inhaled sharply through her teeth. This was different. This was real. She reached for her phone with trembling hands and called Aaron. He answered on the first ring. Charlotte, you okay? It's time, she whispered. The contractions, they're close. Aaron didn't hesitate. I'm on my way. Right now. Within minutes, he was knocking at her door. Marcus and Imani arrived shortly after, breathless and fully awake. Charlotte leaned against the wall, gripping the handrail as another contraction rippled through her. Aaron moved instantly to her side. Breathe with me, he whispered. Slow, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Charlotte clutched his arm, groaning softly. Don't tell me to breathe. Just help me get to the elevator. Aaron smiled gently despite the tension. Yes, ma'am. They made it to the car, each contraction hitting harder than the last. Aaron drove, glancing constantly between the road and the rearview mirror, where Marcus and Imani sat on either side of Charlotte. Are you okay? Aaron asked again. No, Charlotte snapped, then winced as another contraction surged. Yes, maybe. Just drive. Aaron pressed the accelerator gently. Right. Driving. She gripped Imani's hand. This baby is not playing. Imani fanned her face. She's ready, honey. Charlotte yelped as another wave hit. Marcus leaned forward, rubbing her shoulder. You're strong. You're gonna get through this. Charlotte squeezed her eyes shut, breathing through the pain. Sweat gathered at her temple, and every breath felt heavier than the last. Aaron whispered from the front seat, We're almost there. Just hold on. The tension, the fear, the anticipation, it all built into a moment that felt larger than anything she had ever faced. Her mother wasn't here. Her life had changed. But this child was coming tonight. When they reached the hospital, Aaron instinctively guided the car toward the private wing, an area known for luxury birthing suites and upgraded rooms. Charlotte grabbed his sleeve. No, she said firmly. Not there. Aaron blinked. Are you sure? The private wing is quieter, more. I said no, Charlotte repeated, breath trembling through another contraction. My mom had me in this hospital, in the regular unit. I'm staying with what's familiar. Aaron didn't argue. He nodded immediately and turned toward the main entrance of the community wing. Inside, the staff moved quickly, efficiently. Nurses helped Charlotte into a wheelchair, while Marcus handled intake papers. The hallways were bright, humming with activity. People from all walks of life filled the rooms, families waiting, fathers pacing, newborns crying softly behind partially closed doors. It was real. It was warm. It felt like home. Aaron walked beside Charlotte as nurses wheeled her toward the delivery room. Whatever you choose, I'm here, he said quietly. Charlotte squeezed her eyes shut through another contraction. Then don't leave my side. I won't, Aaron said. Not ever again. Inside the delivery room, Nurses set up monitors, 4S, and equipment. The environment was simple, not glamorous, but comforting. Everything felt familiar in a way that grounded Charlotte. Imani helped adjust her pillows. Marcus stood near the foot of the bed, offering steady reassurance. A nurse said, "You're progressing quickly. Looks like your daughter is eager to meet you." Charlotte groaned, gripping the bedrail. She better be cute after all this. Aaron chuckled softly, then stopped when Charlotte shot him a glare. "Sorry," he whispered. "Emotional support. I'm learning." Another contraction surged, and Charlotte cried out, clenching Aaron's hand so tightly he winced. "You got this," Aaron murmured, kissing her forehead carefully. "You're doing great." The room filled with tension, urgency, and the raw beauty of childbirth. Charlotte felt every wave, every push, every ounce of pressure, but she wasn't alone, not anymore. The contractions intensified, rolling through Charlotte in powerful waves. Sweat gathered along her brow. She clenched the sheets, breath ragged. Nurses encouraged her with steady voices. "You're so close, Charlotte. One more push like that. You're doing beautifully." Aaron stood at her side, holding her hand with both of his. "You're almost there. I'm right here." Charlotte groaned through another push, her face contorting with pain. "She better appreciate this when she grows up," she muttered through clenched teeth. Aaron laughed softly. "I'll tell her every birthday." The nurse leaned in. "We can see her head." Charlotte gasped, her entire body trembling. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes glistening as he whispered, "You're almost there, baby. Keep going." Imani wiped Charlotte's forehead. "Breathe. Come on, sweetheart. You can do this." Charlotte pushed again, harder this time, letting out a sound that came from somewhere deep and primal. The nurses exchanged determined glances. "One more," the lead nurse said gently. "Give me one more big push." Charlotte gripped Aaron's hand, inhaled sharply, and pushed with everything she had left. A cry split the room. High, new, perfect. Charlotte collapsed back onto the bed, tears streaming down her face as the nurse lifted the tiny baby into her arms. "Congratulations," the nurse whispered. "You have a beautiful baby girl." Aaron covered his mouth, his eyes filling instantly. Marcus turned away briefly to compose himself. Imani pressed a hand to her chest, whispering, "Thank God." Charlotte stared at the little face tucked against her chest. The baby was warm, soft, squirming softly as if adjusting to the brightness of the world. "Hi, baby," Charlotte whispered, voice trembling with awe. "Hi, my sweet girl." Aaron leaned in slowly, reverently. She's perfect." Charlotte smiled through tears. "Of course she is." It was a moment that rewrote everything. Pain, loss, fear, heartbreak, washed gently away by the miracle resting in her arms. Tonight, life began again. After a few minutes of bonding, a nurse gently wrapped the baby in a soft blanket and helped position her so Charlotte could rest her arms. "Would you like your family to meet her now?" the nurse asked. Charlotte nodded, exhausted but smiling. "Yes, please." Marcus stepped forward first. He stared down at his granddaughter with a stunned expression, his lips trembling as if he'd forgotten how to form words. Slowly, reverently, he reached out to touch the baby's tiny hand. She's beautiful," he whispered, "just like her mother." Charlotte felt tears well again. "Dad." Marcus cleared his throat, but emotion cracked his voice anyway. "Your mother would have held her so tight. She would have spoiled her rotten." Charlotte nodded, feeling both joy and a gentle ache. "I know." Imani approached next. "Oh my goodness, look at her cheeks." She breathed. "She's precious." Charlotte laughed softly. "Hold her." Imani froze. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Charlotte said warmly. With trembling hands, Imani lifted the baby and cradled her gently. "She's so tiny and strong. She's already looking around like she owns the place." Marcus chuckled. "Takes after her mama." They admired the baby for a long moment, whispering blessings and offering warm smiles. "Have you picked a name?" Marcus asked. Charlotte nodded. Mom always loved the name Abigail, and Ray was her middle name. Aaron smiled. "Abigail Ray. It's perfect." Imani dabbed her eyes. "Your mother would be so proud." Charlotte exhaled softly, looking at her daughter with quiet reverence. "I hope she watches over her." The room felt peaceful, complete, filled with the rare kind of joy that seemed to patch every broken place in Charlotte's heart. Family, love, healing, all in one tiny newborn. Later that night, after Marcus and Imani returned home to rest, Aaron stayed behind in the dimly lit hospital room. Charlotte lay propped against pillows, cradling Abigail as she slept. Aaron sat close, watching both of them quietly. "She's perfect," he whispered again, unable to stop saying it. Charlotte smiled softly. "She really is." Aaron swallowed, his voice rough. "Charlotte, I need to tell you something before this moment slips by." She looked up at him calmly. "I will never walk away again," Aaron said, leaning forward. "Not from you, not from her, not from responsibility, not from difficult moments." Charlotte studied him carefully, not reacting, just listening. He continued, "When I left you at the funeral, I acted from fear. But seeing you bring this life into the world tonight reminded me of something I forgot. I want to be a man worthy of you, worthy of her." Charlotte took a slow breath. Aaron reached out, gently touching Abigail's tiny hand. "This little girl deserves a father who's present, who's strong, who chooses his family every single day." He looked into Charlotte's eyes. "And you deserve a partner who doesn't fold when life gets hard. You deserve more than apologies. You deserve consistency. You deserve loyalty. You deserve love that shows up." Charlotte's eyes softened, but she didn't rush her response. "Aaron," she whispered, "tonight, you showed up. You were steady. You were patient. You were here." "I will always be here," he said. "From now on, I won't disappear. I won't leave you alone to handle everything. I promise." Charlotte looked down at their daughter, then back at him. "Don't make promises lightly." "I'm not," he said. "This is a vow." Silence fell between them, gentle, warm, full of possibility. Charlotte nodded slowly. "Okay. Then keep showing up." Aaron exhaled, relieved. "I will." He leaned closer, resting his forehead gently beside hers. Not a kiss, not a demand, just a quiet gesture of devotion. In that small, tender moment, their family began to knit itself back together. 1 month after Abigail's birth, Charlotte stepped out of Aaron's car and gazed at the old brick community center on the corner of Willow Street. The building had been part of her childhood, where she attended after-school programs, learned dance, ate free summer lunches, and listened to elders pass down stories. Now the center was worn, the paint faded, the roof patched too many times to count. Charlotte held Abigail close in her carrier, feeling the baby's warm breath against her chest. This building mattered, not because it was old, but because it had shaped who she was. Her mother had always hoped to restore it one day, but never had the funds to make it happen. Now Charlotte could. She pushed open the door, and the familiar creak welcomed her like an old friend. Marcus met her inside, walking slowly through the hall with his hands in his pockets. "Still feels the same," he said softly. Charlotte nodded. "That's the problem. Kids from this neighborhood deserve better. Mom wanted it better." Marcus turned to her. "She'd be proud you're doing this." Charlotte inhaled deeply. "I'm not just fixing a building. I'm building something she dreamed of." She had already hired local contractors, people who grew up in the community, people who knew the heart of this neighborhood. They greeted her warmly as she walked through the main hall. "Morning, Miss Charlotte," one called. "We're starting on the electrical today." "Good," she said with a smile. "Make it safe. Make it last." They walked her through the plans: new classrooms, a computer lab, a daycare room, a dance studio, an after-school tutoring lounge. The mural wall would be restored, filled with portraits of neighborhood heroes, including her mother. Charlotte paused at the blank section reserved for the new artwork. "Mom's picture will go right here," she whispered to Abigail. "You'll know her through this place." Abigail kicked gently, as if agreeing. Marcus placed a hand on Charlotte's shoulder. "You're honoring her the right way." Charlotte nodded, emotion tightening her throat. This wasn't about wealth, it was about purpose. Her mother didn't leave her money to live lavishly, she left it to impact lives. Charlotte stepped into the sunlight outside and whispered, "We're rebuilding the community. We're rebuilding everything." And she meant it. A week after renovations began, Charlotte visited the temporary learning space set up. Behind the community center, a large tent with folding chairs, tables, and whiteboards. And there, right in the middle of it, was Erin, wearing a bright red apron that said, "Math is my superpower." Charlotte stopped in her tracks. Erin was kneeling beside a group of kids, explaining fractions using pizza slices drawn on a whiteboard. The children surrounded him, laughing at his exaggerated explanations. "So," he said, pointing to a circle, "if Charlotte eats 3 slices, because she's always hungry these days, how many are left for me?" A boy shouted, "None. Moms eat everything." Erin clutched his chest dramatically. Savage. Absolutely savage. Charlotte covered her mouth to stop her laughter. Abigail gurgled in her arms, fascinated by the commotion. Erin noticed them and waved. "Class, this is Charlotte. She's our boss." One of the girls squinted. "Is that your wife?" Erin stuttered. Well, we're working on things." Charlotte raised an eyebrow, amused. "Smooth." The kids giggled. Another little boy tugged at Erin's apron. "Why you wear this? It's funny." Erin shrugged. "If it makes you laugh, it works." Charlotte felt something warm bloom in her chest. This was the Erin she once believed in. Warm, funny, engaged, trying. Marcus approached from the far side, smirking. He's been out here every day, shows up early, leaves late, even bought snacks. Charlotte looked at Erin, impressed. He said he wanted to help, but Marcus nodded. He meant it. As if proving the point, Erin stood and handed worksheets to the kids. "All right, pizza masters, let's see what you've got." The kids scattered happily to their seats. Charlotte approached him with Abigail. "Math superhero, huh?" Erin shrugged shyly. They picked the apron. "I bought it. I think it's growing on me." Charlotte laughed. "It's ridiculous, but memorable," he said with a grin. Charlotte softened. "You're doing good work here. I want to be part of the world you care about," he replied. "These kids matter. They matter to you. So they matter to me." His sincerity touched her deeper than she expected. For the first time since their separation, Erin wasn't just reconnecting with Charlotte. He was rooting himself in her culture, her community, her life. Every evening brought new moments of tenderness between Erin and Abigail. Little snapshots of a growing bond that warmed Charlotte's heart. One night Charlotte walked into the living room to find Erin lying on the floor, Abigail on his chest. He was reading a picture book in an animated voice. And then the tiny bear said, "I want more honey." Abigail squealed, waving her arms. Charlotte laughed softly. "She loves your silly voices." Erin grinned. "She's my best audience." Another day, he tried to feed Abigail from her bottle while she refused to cooperate, turning her head dramatically each time he brought the bottle near. "Abigail," Erin begged, "please. I'm a reasonable man. Don't make me negotiate with a 3-week-old. Charlotte leaned against the doorway, chuckling. "She's testing you." "She's winning," Erin groaned. Abigail finally accepted the bottle, and immediately smiled afterward, as if proud of herself. Then there were the moments that melted Charlotte completely, like when Erin held Abigail against his chest, swaying gently while humming softly. His voice was low, warm, a tune Charlotte recognized. "You're humming the song my mom loved," she whispered. Erin nodded. She used to play it at the house. I remembered. Charlotte's breath caught. There was also the night Abigail wouldn't stop crying. Marcus tried. Imani tried. But nothing worked. The staff at the center joked she had strong lungs. Erin stepped forward, took her gently, and whispered, Hey, Daddy's here." She calmed immediately. Charlotte blinked in disbelief. "How did you do that?" Erin shrugged. "Magic?" Charlotte rolled her eyes, but her heart softened. These moments, small, quiet, tender, showed her a side of him she wished she had seen sooner. Abigail adored him, and he adored her right back. As weeks passed, Charlotte's presence at the renovated community center shifted from visitor to leader. With Abigail in a sling across her chest, she walked confidently through construction, updates, supply lists, and scheduling meetings with contractors. "You're a natural," one of the workers told her. Charlotte smiled. "I'm learning." Mom was the true leader, but in truth, Charlotte was becoming one in her own right. She organized tutoring programs. She established partnerships with local schools. She worked with business advisors to allocate funds responsibly. She set up a scholarship program in her mother's name. Her office was a simple room with a wooden desk, a bulletin board, filled with charts, and a bassinet where Abigail slept peacefully. Aaron stepped in one afternoon holding coffee. "Thought you might be tired." Charlotte accepted it gratefully. "Thank you." He looked around. "You're really doing it." "Doing what?" "Running an entire network, changing lives, building something huge." His voice softened. "Your mom would be in awe." Charlotte exhaled shakily. "I hope so." Aaron leaned on the doorframe. "You're stepping into the role she prepared you for." Charlotte sat back, letting the weight of that truth settle. "Sometimes I still feel like I'm pretending." "You're not," Aaron replied. "You're leading. People follow you because they trust you. Because you care." She was quiet for a moment. "It's a lot to carry." "I know," he whispered. "But you're not carrying it alone. Not anymore." Charlotte met his eyes, a steady, warm gaze that held sincerity instead of fear. Her world had changed overnight, yes, but she was rising to meet it. For her daughter, for her mother's legacy, for herself. For weeks, Charlotte and Aaron had found a steady rhythm: morning feedings, community center meetings, tutoring sessions, late-night soft conversations. But healing is never linear. And trust, even when blooming, holds shadows. It began subtly. Aaron walked into Charlotte's office one afternoon while she was reviewing financial reports. "I'll be tutoring late today," he said. "A new group of fifth graders needs help with reading assessments." Charlotte nodded without looking up. "Okay." But something in her tone wasn't okay. Aaron hesitated. Is something wrong?" Charlotte sighed, setting the papers down. "No. I'm just tired." He stepped closer. "Are you sure? You sound distant." "Distant?" She raised an eyebrow. "I'm running 3 programs and raising a newborn. Of course I'm tired." She hadn't meant for it to sound sharp, but it did. Aaron's face dropped slightly. "Right. I didn't mean to add pressure." He turned to leave. Charlotte watched him go, guilt forming in her chest. But she didn't call him back. Not yet. That evening, Marcus and Imani came to help with Abigail. While they were in the kitchen, Charlotte stood in the living room holding her daughter, staring at the soft glow of the lamp. She whispered to Abigail, "Sometimes I don't know how to trust again." It wasn't about Aaron's actions today. It was about the memory of the day he walked away. A wound that healed, then reopened with the slightest touch. Later that night, Charlotte sat alone on the couch. Aaron entered quietly, exhausted from tutoring. "How was today?" she asked. "Good," he said softly. "The kids are improving." Charlotte nodded. Silence settled, thick and uneasy. Aaron finally said, "Charlotte, did I do something wrong?" Her breath caught. No, but the truth pressed on her chest. Her fear wasn't about today. It was about the possibility of tomorrow. The fear of relying on someone who had once stepped away. The fear of losing everything again. Her insecurities stirred, not because she wanted distance, but because she wanted closeness. And that terrified her. The tension came to a head one evening after the community center's staff meeting. Abigail had been fussier than usual. Charlotte was exhausted, and Aaron, trying to help, accidentally picked the wrong moment to bring up an idea. He held a brochure. "I was thinking, maybe we could enroll Abigail in an early childhood class when she gets older. Music or baby swimming, something fun." Charlotte blinked, overwhelmed. "Aaron, she's barely a month old. Can we breathe for 5 minutes before planning her entire life?" Aaron frowned. It was just a thought. "Well, I don't need another thing on my plate," she snapped. His jaw tightened. "I'm trying to be involved, and I'm trying not to collapse under a mountain of responsibilities," she fired back. Aaron stepped back, hurt. "I'm not the enemy here." "I didn't say you were," Charlotte replied, rubbing her temples. "I'm just tired." "This isn't about the class, is it?" Aaron asked softly. Charlotte didn't answer. Aaron exhaled. "Every time I try to help, it feels like you're waiting for me to fail." Charlotte's chest tightened. "Maybe I am," she whispered, before she could stop herself. The room fell painfully silent. Aaron stepped toward her. "Charlotte, Is that really how you see me? Someone who will fail you? She looked away. I don't know. Yes, you do, he said gently but firmly. Talk to me. Don't shut down. Charlotte swallowed, fighting tears. I don't want to fight. Neither do I, he said. But we can't move forward if we're scared to talk. Her shoulders slumped. Finally, she whispered, I'm afraid. Aaron softened. Of what? Her voice cracked. Of depending on you again. Of letting myself trust that you'll stay. Aaron reached out slowly, giving her space to step back if needed. She didn't. He took her hands. You're allowed to be scared, but don't punish yourself for trying again. And don't punish me when I'm doing everything I can to show you I'm here. Charlotte looked up, tears blurring her vision. I don't want to lose what we're rebuilding. You won't, Aaron said. Not if we keep choosing honesty over silence. He pulled her into a gentle embrace. Charlotte rested her forehead on his chest, breathing in the steadiness of him. This time, instead of breaking them, the conflict brought them closer. An hour later, after Abigail finally fell asleep, Charlotte and Aaron sat on the edge of the bed in the soft glow of the nightstand lamp. Aaron didn't push her. He didn't force conversation. He simply sat beside her, waiting for her heart to speak. And it did. Quietly, hesitantly, honestly. Aaron, Charlotte whispered, I still fear you'll walk away again. Aaron closed his eyes. The words struck deeply, not because they were unfair, but because they were true. He took her hand gently. Thank you for saying it. Charlotte bit her lip. I try to forget that day. I try to bury it. But sometimes it feels fresh again, like it just happened. Aaron nodded slowly. Pain doesn't disappear just because we want it to. And I gave you a wound that takes time to heal. Charlotte's voice trembled. I want to trust you. I'm trying. But when things get stressful, when I feel overwhelmed, that fear comes out. He squeezed her hand softly. I understand. No, Aaron, she said, turning to him fully. I need you to understand what that fear means. It means I still love you. If I didn't, I wouldn't be scared. Her vulnerability made his breath catch. I'm terrified of losing you again, she admitted. Terrified of raising our daughter alone. Terrified of building a future that could disappear if you panic like before. Aaron's eyes filled with emotion. Charlotte, I won't run again. I swear to you. She shook her head. Don't swear, just show me. Every day. I will, he said without hesitation. Charlotte leaned into him, the tension easing from her shoulders. I want us to work. I want our daughter to grow up in a stable, loving home. And she will, Aaron whispered. Charlotte closed her eyes, breathing in deeply. Her confession didn't break them. It anchored them. Her fear wasn't the end, it was the doorway to a deeper truth. Aaron turned toward her, his expression tender and unguarded. Charlotte, can I tell you something honestly, something I've been holding inside? She nodded. I wake up every day hoping I can prove to you that I'm different now. Not with big gestures, not with apologies, but with steady moments. He took a breath. I'm scared too. Charlotte blinked. Of what? Of failing you, he admitted. Of making one wrong move and losing the chance you gave me. I'm scared that when you look at me you still see the man who hurt you, instead of the man who's trying to rebuild. Charlotte softened. You are rebuilding. Aaron touched her cheek gently. I want to be worthy of you. Worthy of our daughter. Worthy of the life we're shaping together. Charlotte leaned into his touch. I can't erase what I did, he continued, his voice low, honest. But I can show up every day until your fear doesn't feel so heavy. Until my presence feels steady. Until my mistakes feel farther away than our progress. Charlotte breathed shakily. I want that so much. Then we'll create it, Aaron said. Together, Charlotte rested her head on his shoulder. His arms wrapped around her, not tight, not demanding, just warm and steady. Abigail stirred softly in her bassinet, filling the room with the quiet hum of new life. Aaron whispered into Charlotte's hair, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, not ever again. And Charlotte believed him, not because of his words alone, but because of the man he had shown himself to be these past weeks. The man who tutored children. The man who soothed Abigail's cries. The man who learned from pain rather than hiding from it. The man who loved her with quiet determination. Their marriage was still healing, still fragile, but it was alive again, and growing stronger with every honest conversation. The next morning brought an unusual calm. Sunlight filtered gently through the blinds, filling the living room with a soft glow. Abigail lay on her blanket on the floor, kicking her tiny feet while Aaron made silly faces at her. She rewarded him with a gummy smile. Charlotte watched from the couch, her heart warming. "You're obsessed with her," she teased. Aaron grinned without denying it. Completely. Charlotte sipped her tea and leaned back. The night before had been difficult, but the honesty they shared made the air feel clearer today, lighter, more open. The heaviness that had once lingered between them seemed to fade, replaced by something peaceful. Abigail began cooing loudly, demanding more attention. Aaron picked her up with exaggerated seriousness. "Yes, ma'am. Reporting for baby duty." Charlotte laughed. "She's going to run the house." "Already does," Aaron replied. Charlotte shook her head, amused. For a moment, everything felt aligned. Family, healing, progress. Marcus arrived shortly after with supplies for the community center. He greeted Abigail first, kissing her forehead, then sat beside Charlotte. "You look happier today," he observed. "I feel steady," she admitted. "Last night helped." Marcus nodded. "You two are putting in the work. That's what matters." Aaron approached them with Abigail in his arms. "She needs a diaper change." "Wish me luck." Charlotte smiled warmly. "You'll be fine." As Aaron headed to the bedroom, Marcus's expression shifted slightly. Subtle, but noticeable. Charlotte felt a question form. "What?" she asked softly. Marcus hesitated. "I'm glad things are improving," he said carefully. "Or just stay alert. Love can be beautiful, but it can also be complicated." Charlotte frowned gently. "Dad, what happened in the past is behind us. We're rebuilding." Marcus nodded, but his eyes carried something she couldn't quite read. "Just remember, you deserve peace." Charlotte placed a hand on his arm. "I know." But the brief shift in his tone stayed with her longer than she expected. She didn't yet know that everything she believed about Aaron's abandonment was about to flip upside down. Later that afternoon, while Charlotte sorted through paperwork for the renovated center, she overheard Marcus and Aaron talking in the next room. Their voices weren't raised, but the tone was sharp, controlled, uneasy. "Marcus, you should have told her." "Aaron, it wasn't my truth to tell. It was yours." Charlotte froze. Marcus sighed heavily. "I did what I thought was best at the time," Aaron replied. It nearly destroyed her. A cold sensation traveled up Charlotte's spine. She stood silently in the hallway, not moving, not breathing. "Marcus, you walking away kept both of you from an ugly fight. You can't deny that." "Aaron, she thinks I abandoned her out of fear. She carries that pain every day." "Marcus, would you rather she knew her own father doubted your ability to be a good husband? To be a father?" Charlotte's fingertips trembled. Her father doubted Aaron? And Aaron knew? And that was connected to the day he left her at the funeral? Her heartbeat quickened. Aaron's voice deepened. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving her. I left because I overheard you telling a relative that Charlotte would be better off without me, and that you'd make sure she understood that once the baby arrived." Charlotte covered her mouth to keep from gasping aloud. Marcus whispered back, "I was protecting her. She was grieving, pregnant, and vulnerable. I didn't trust you not to add more stress." "I was wrong, Aaron. I see that now." Aaron's voice cracked slightly. "I walked away because I believed Charlotte deserved peace. I thought stepping back would stop more conflict." Marcus exhaled. "We both made mistakes." Charlotte felt her knees weaken. The hallway blurred for a moment. Everything she believed, everything she blamed Aaron for, everything she held in her chest for months, it was all rooted in a truth she had never been told. Her father had planned to push Aaron away. Aaron overheard him. Aaron left because he thought Charlotte would be forced to choose. Charlotte backed into the wall, breath shaking. Her world was shifting again, not collapsing but rearranging itself with painful honesty. She wasn't ready for the truth. But the truth had come anyway. Charlotte stepped into the room, her voice trembling. "Enough, both of you." Aaron and Marcus turned sharply. Aaron's eyes widened, worried, guilty. Marcus took a step back. Charlotte's hands shook at her sides. I heard everything. Neither man spoke. Charlotte looked at her father first. You told someone I'd be better off without my husband? While I was pregnant? While we were preparing for our future? Marcus swallowed hard. Charlotte, No, she cut in, her voice breaking. You let me think he abandoned me because he didn't love me. You let me suffer through grief, pregnancy, and heartbreak. Without the truth, Marcus's eyes filled. I thought I was protecting you. By robbing me of the right to make my own decisions? Her voice rose. Mom trusted me. Why didn't you? Marcus lowered his head. Charlotte turned to Aaron. And you? Why didn't you tell me? Aaron's voice was barely above a whisper. Because I didn't want to cause a rift between you and your father. You had already lost your mother. I didn't want to take your father from you too. Charlotte shook her head slowly. So your silence was supposed to protect me? Aaron stepped forward. I walked away because I thought it was what you needed. I thought it would keep peace in your family. I didn't want to be the reason you fought with your father. Charlotte's heart thudded painfully. But you were supposed to talk to me. Not disappear. Not at the funeral. Not like that. Aaron's eyes glistened. I know. And I regret it every day. Marcus whispered. Charlotte. I was wrong. I misjudged him. And I misjudged you. I let fear speak for me. Charlotte stared between them. Two men who loved her. Two men who made decisions on her behalf without giving her a voice. Her breath broke. Do either of you understand what that day did to me? Aaron looked devastated. Marcus bowed his head. Charlotte wiped her tears. I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. I had to carry a child alone. I had to walk through grief without support. All because both of you decided what was best for me. Without me. Silence filled the room. Charlotte took a shaky breath. Thank you for the truth. But now I need space to think. She walked out, leaving both men standing in the wreckage of their choices. Charlotte walked outside, feeling the cool air brush against her skin. Her thoughts raced, colliding like waves against the shore. Aaron didn't leave because he stopped loving her. He left because he believed he was protecting her. He left because he overheard Marcus planning to push him out. The truth hurt, but not the way she expected. It didn't reopen old wounds. It illuminated them. She realized something painful yet freeing. She wasn't abandoned because she was unworthy. She wasn't left because she was difficult to love. She wasn't alone because Aaron chose to run from her. She was caught in a misunderstanding built from fear, her father's fear, Aaron's fear, and her own fear of loss. As she paced slowly along the walkway, with Abigail resting against her chest in a sling, tears streamed down her cheeks. Mom, she whispered, why didn't they just talk to me? The sky didn't answer, but the gentle breeze felt like reassurance. Charlotte sat on a bench, rocking Abigail gently. The baby cooed softly, unaware of the emotional storm swirling around her mother. You deserve a whole family, Charlotte whispered. Not pieces of one, not confusion, not pain. She took a slow breath and let clarity settle in her chest. Aaron's mistake wasn't lack of love. It was lack of communication. Marcus's mistake wasn't cruelty. It was overprotection. And her mistake, she realized, was believing silence meant truth. Charlotte wiped her face, determination forming. If we're rebuilding, we rebuild with honesty. No secrets, no assumptions, no unilateral decisions. She stood, steadying herself. The truth had hurt, but it had also opened a door to healing, a door to deeper understanding, a door to a future built on transparency instead of fear. Charlotte turned back toward the house. It was time to talk, really talk. Charlotte walked slowly back into the house with Abigail held tightly against her chest, her heartbeat still uneven from the truth she had just heard. The room felt different now, like the walls held secrets she was only just discovering. Abigail rested peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Charlotte sank onto the couch, her breath trembling as she tried to gather her thoughts. The truth was still sinking in, layer by layer. Aaron didn't leave because he didn't love her. He didn't leave because he wanted to run. He left because he overheard a conversation meant to push him out of her life. Charlotte closed her eyes, her hand gently rubbing Abigail's back. What am I supposed to do with all of this? She whispered. She had built her understanding of her heartbreak on one explanation, one version of what happened that day at the funeral. She believed she had been abandoned because she wasn't enough, because love failed her. because Aaron failed her. And that belief shaped the way she healed, the way she protected herself, the way she learned to trust again. But now, everything she thought she understood was shifting. Her father's fear, Aaron's silence, her own vulnerability, each piece created a bigger picture she wasn't ready to look at. But had no choice now. Abigail stirred slightly, making a soft sound that grounded her. Charlotte whispered, "I don't want to live in the past anymore. I want peace. I want clarity." She thought back to her mother's funeral, the moment she felt the world collapse under her, the moment Aaron walked away. Now, that moment held a different meaning. Not abandonment, but miscommunication rooted in fear. Tears slipped down her cheeks, softer this time, not drowning her, just releasing tension she didn't realize she had carried. "I have to face this," she murmured. "For myself, for Abigail, for our future." For the first time since hearing the truth, Charlotte felt something she desperately needed. Control, composure, a sense of direction. Truth hurt, yes, but it also cleared the fog. Charlotte walked into the dining room where Marcus sat, elbows on the table, head bowed. He looked older than she remembered, more worn, more fragile. The weight of his choices sat heavily on him. "Dad," she said softly. Marcus lifted his head, his eyes already glassy. "Baby girl, I'm so sorry." Charlotte sat across from him, placing Abigail in her bassinet beside her. "We need to talk, fully, honestly." Marcus nodded slowly. "I know, and you deserve the whole truth." Charlotte folded her hands. "Why did you decide Aaron wasn't good for me? Why did you think you had the right to get involved like that?" Marcus rubbed his face. "Because I saw you grieving your mother. I saw you carrying a child, and I saw Aaron overwhelmed, unsure, and scattered. I thought he wasn't steady enough. I thought he'd crumble under pressure and drag you down with him." Charlotte swallowed. "So you talked about pushing him away?" Marcus nodded shamefully. "At the time, I believed you needed calm, stability. I thought if I could make him step back, you'd have space to breathe. And instead," Charlotte said softly, "I broke." Marcus winced. "I didn't think he'd leave like that. I didn't think he'd disappear during the worst moment of your life. I thought he'd confront me, argue, fight for you." Charlotte shook her head slowly. "But he didn't want me to lose you. He thought stepping back would protect me from more pain." Marcus closed his eyes, grief clutching his voice. "I misjudged him. I misjudged you." Charlotte leaned back, breathing deeply. "Dad, I needed support. I needed transparency. I needed you to trust me with my own life. I was scared," Marcus confessed. "Your mother had always been the calm one, the voice of reason. After losing her, I panicked. I acted out of fear, not wisdom." Charlotte's voice cracked. "You should have talked to me." "I know," Marcus whispered, "and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." Charlotte watched him, really watched him, and saw not a villain, but a father who loved imperfectly, who loved deeply, who made a mistake rooted in fear, not malice. She sighed, tears gathering again. "Dad, we can't go back, but we can move forward." Marcus looked up. "Do you forgive me?" Charlotte hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of careful reflection. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Yes, I forgive you, but things have to change. No more secrets, no more decisions about my life without me." Marcus nodded. "You have my word." A weight lifted, heavy, warm, necessary. After speaking with Marcus, Charlotte stepped onto the back porch to breathe in the cool air. The sky was beginning to dim, streaked with orange and purple hues. She took Abigail into her arms and rocked gently, letting her thoughts settle. Forgiveness didn't erase the past. Forgiveness didn't excuse the pain. Forgiveness didn't instantly heal trust, but forgiveness allowed her to move forward with intention instead of dragging yesterday's wounds into tomorrow. The screen door opened quietly behind her. Aaron stepped onto the porch, hands in his pockets, expression careful, almost afraid to disturb her calm. "Can I join you?" he asked softly. Charlotte nodded. "Yes." Aaron approached and stood beside her, watching Abigail wiggle in her arms. He exhaled deeply. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," Charlotte said quietly. "I understand now." Aaron glanced at her, hopeful yet cautious. "You talked to your father?" "Yes." She looked out toward the yard. He acted out of fear. You reacted out of fear. And I spent months struggling because neither of you trusted me enough to handle the truth. Aaron winced. You're right. Charlotte shifted Abigail slightly. But understanding the reasons doesn't erase the impact. She paused. Still, I don't want to live in resentment. Aaron's breath caught. Does that mean? It means I'm choosing peace, Charlotte said. For myself, for Abigail, for us. Emotion flickered across Aaron's face. Relief, gratitude, humility. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he whispered. Maybe not yet, Charlotte said honestly. But forgiveness isn't a reward. It's a step. And I'm taking it. Aaron nodded, understanding the depth of what she was offering. Thank you, he said, voice trembling. Charlotte reached out and gently placed Abigail into his arms. If we're building a future, it has to be one built on honesty. No secrets, no making decisions for me, no disappearing, ever. Aaron held Abigail close, nodding. I promise. Charlotte's eyes softened. Good. Then let's move forward. She leaned her head briefly against his shoulder, not out of dependency, but out of choice. For the first time since her mother's passing, Charlotte felt whole. Not because life was perfect, but because she was choosing maturity, clarity, and love that required effort, not fantasy. Peace wasn't something handed to her. It was something she chose, and she chose it today. Over the next several weeks, the household settled into a new kind of harmony, one built not on illusion, but on intentional effort. Charlotte and Aaron created routines that reflected mutual understanding, not forced perfection. Every morning, Aaron woke before Charlotte to warm Abigail's bottle and prepare breakfast. He didn't ask what needed to be done. He observed, anticipated, and stepped in with quiet confidence. This consistency softened something inside Charlotte. It wasn't grand gestures that rebuilt trust. It was the steady reliability of everyday care. Charlotte began to open up more, allowing herself to express worries before they snowballed. She no longer held her breath when Aaron left the room. She didn't assume silence meant distance. Instead, she recognized it as simply silence. One evening, as they folded laundry together, Aaron glanced at her with a small smile. We're getting better at this. Charlotte returned the smile. We are. Aaron folded one of Abigail's tiny onesies, his movements deliberate. I read something earlier, he said. A relationship isn't two people avoiding mistakes. It's two people choosing each other even after mistakes. Charlotte paused mid-fold, absorbing the words. That sounds right. Do you choose me? Aaron asked, voice gentle, not demanding, not pressuring. Charlotte took a slow breath. Yes, I choose you. But choosing isn't the end. It's the beginning of doing the work. Aaron nodded with deep understanding. Then I'll keep doing the work. Every day. Charlotte leaned closer, resting her head briefly against his arm. We're learning, she whispered. Together, their marriage no longer resembled what it once was. It wasn't untouched or naive. It wasn't dependent on fantasy. It was real, rooted in communication, emotional honesty, and shared responsibility. Their love had been tested, cracked, shaken. But now, it was rebuilding on solid ground. And that renewed foundation carried a strength neither of them had known before. The community center renovations reached a new phase, one that brought vibrant energy to the neighborhood. Fresh paint brightened the walls, new computers lined the lab tables, and the dance studio smelled of polished wood and new beginnings. Charlotte moved through the building with confidence, Abigail tucked in a sling across her chest. Aaron walked beside her carrying a box of donated books from local families. Contractors greeted her warmly. Volunteers waved. Parents approached her with gratitude. Charlotte smiled. We're making real progress. Aaron nodded. You're leading this place with heart. Your mom would be proud. Charlotte paused at the doorway of the new library room. This was her dream. A place where kids could learn without feeling small. Aaron set the box down. And you made it real. A group of children ran past them, laughing loudly as they joined an art class in the next room. Charlotte watched them with joy warming her chest. We're expanding the after-school program next month, she said. We'll need more volunteers. I'll be here, Aaron replied. Charlotte glanced at him. You already do so much. I want to, he said simply. Later that afternoon, Charlotte met with the advisory team. Marcus joined, offering input on budgeting, while Imani reviewed curriculum ideas. Aaron occupied Abigail during the meeting, entertaining her with soft humming. Charlotte presented updated plans, a mentorship program, a weekend reading club, a small scholarship fund. For graduating seniors, a summer community fair to celebrate resilience. When she finished, the room applauded. After the meeting, Marcus approached her with a proud smile. "You're stepping into leadership naturally." Charlotte's eyes softened. "Because of the foundation Mom laid. And because of your own strength," Marcus added. Charlotte exhaled deeply as she glanced around the center. "This place, it feels like home." "It is," Marcus said. "And it's your legacy now." Charlotte held Abigail close, imagining her daughter growing up surrounded by love, community, and opportunity. Aaron joined them, wiping a bit of paint from his hand. "Charlotte, the mural artist wants your input." She nodded, leading the way. The expanded community center wasn't just a building, it was a symbol, a bridge between past and future, a beacon of healing after heartbreak, a testament to what her mother inspired, and what Charlotte was now carrying forward. Charlotte stood before the newly restored mural, her mother's portrait emerging in soft strokes of warm color. The artist captured her smile perfectly, welcoming, calm, wise. Aaron said gently, "She looks like she's watching over the whole building." Charlotte nodded, her throat tightening. She believed in community. She believed in giving people a chance. "I want to live the same way." "You already are," Aaron said. Charlotte walked through the halls, stopping to greet volunteers, check on the youth programs, and answer parents' questions. She gave guidance with confidence and compassion, just like her mother would have. When a teenager approached her with concerns about college applications, Charlotte listened patiently, then guided him through the first steps. When an overwhelmed parent asked about financial assistance, she connected them with the right resources. When younger children argued in the art room, she knelt beside them and helped them work through their frustrations gently and respectfully. Her leadership wasn't loud. It wasn't showy. It was steady, empathetic, firm when needed, but always rooted in kindness. In the evenings, she reviewed plans for future expansions. She organized schedules, spoke at local meetings, and secured more donations. One night, while Abigail slept nearby, Aaron watched her working at her desk. "You're becoming the woman she knew you could be." Charlotte paused. "I miss her, Aaron. Every day." He nodded softly. "She'd be proud to see who you're becoming." Charlotte touched her mother's handwriting framed on the wall. "Nothing worth building is built in silence. Use your voice." And Charlotte was finally doing exactly that. She wasn't just inheriting her mother's wealth. She was inheriting her purpose, her direction, her strength. And she carried it forward with grace. As the sun set one evening, Charlotte stepped outside the center with Abigail in her stroller. Aaron locked up behind her, smiling. "We did good today," he said. Charlotte nodded. "Yeah, we really did." Marcus and Imani waved from across the street before getting into their car. They had spent the afternoon assisting with the literacy club, blending into the fabric of the growing community. Charlotte felt a sense of completeness. They weren't perfect. The past wasn't erased. But her family, broken, shaken, tested, was rebuilding into something stronger, more intentional. Aaron wrapped an arm lightly around her shoulder. "I love this version of us." Charlotte leaned into him. "Me too." The neighborhood lights flickered on around them. The laughter of children echoed. Volunteers packed away supplies. The mural glowed under soft lighting. Charlotte whispered, "This is the legacy Mom wanted for me. Not just wealth, not just buildings, but love, community, purpose." Aaron kissed Abigail's head lightly. "You're creating something she'd be proud of." Charlotte closed her eyes, feeling her heart swell. Then she turned to the viewers, the invisible audience walking through this journey with her. If this story has touched your heart, please comment "resilience" to help this message reach others. Your engagement truly supports the mission behind these stories. She inhaled deeply, allowing peace to settle inside her. A family reborn, a legacy reclaimed, a purpose realized. The garden behind Charlotte's house had always been a modest patch of soil, nothing grand, nothing manicured, but it had heart. Her mother planted the very first flowers there when Charlotte was a child, telling her, "Every seed tells a story." Some grow slow, some grow fast, but all grow with care. Charlotte never forgot that. Now, months after Abigail's birth, the small garden had transformed into a sanctuary, a place where Charlotte found calm, where Aaron learned patience, and where Abigail discovered the wonder of colors and textures. On a quiet Saturday morning, the three of them stepped outside together. Aaron carried Abigail in his arms while Charlotte knelt beside the soil, wearing gardening gloves her mother once used. Abigail babbled excitedly, reaching for the bright petals. Aaron lowered her closer. "You like the yellow ones, huh?" "She loves anything bright," Charlotte said with a smile. "Mom always said yellow flowers were tiny sunbeams." Aaron kissed Abigail's cheek. "Then she has her grandmother's taste." Charlotte brushed soil gently around the new seedlings she planted. "These flowers are for the community center. We'll move them there once they're strong enough." Aaron crouched beside her. "It's beautiful what you're building." Charlotte paused, looking at him. "It's not just me. We're building it together." For a moment, silence filled the garden. Not empty silence, but full, peaceful silence. The kind that comes when people understand each other without speaking. Charlotte looked at Abigail, who was mesmerized by a butterfly drifting past. "Look at her," she said. "She doesn't know pain, she doesn't know fear, she just sees beauty." Aaron nodded. "That's what we're fighting for, isn't it? To give her a life full of beauty instead of confusion." Charlotte took a slow breath. "And love that stays." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers gently. "I'm here, I'm staying. For her, for you, for us." Charlotte squeezed his hand, something soft and steady growing inside her chest. That familiar shadow of doubt, the one she feared would never fully leave, faded just a little more. The garden didn't erase the past, but it nurtured what was blooming now: peace, unity, and the beginning of a stable future. While Charlotte watered the flowers, Aaron leaned over to adjust one of the stepping stones beneath the rose bush. Something metallic caught his eye, a tiny glimmer beneath the dirt. He brushed it aside and pulled out a small, shiny coin. "Huh," he murmured. "Charlotte, look at this." She turned, wiping her gloves on her jeans. "What is it?" Aaron handed her the coin. It wasn't a regular coin. It was smooth, old-fashioned, engraved with a small sunburst design. Charlotte's breath caught immediately. "This is..." She swallowed. "This is my mother's lucky coin. She used to keep it in her pocket all the time." Aaron's brows lifted. "I didn't know she buried anything out here." "She didn't," Charlotte whispered. "She lost this years ago, before I even met you." She rubbed her thumb across the worn engraving, memories flooding in. Her mother used to let her hold the coin during thunderstorms, saying, "This will remind you the sun always returns." Charlotte looked at the coin now, shimmering in the light. She must have dropped it out here while gardening. She always said this place held secrets. Aaron smiled. "Sounds like something she'd say." Charlotte held the coin to her heart. "I needed this today. A reminder that she's still guiding me." Abigail reached out, her tiny fingers opening and closing toward the object. Charlotte gently tapped the coin against Abigail's palm and laughed softly when the baby squealed. "Someday," Charlotte whispered to her daughter, "I'll tell you all about your grandmother. She loved deeply. She led strongly. She believed in leaving pieces of herself behind to guide others." Aaron placed a hand on Charlotte's back. "Maybe this is her way of saying you're on the right path." Charlotte exhaled. "Maybe so." The coin wasn't just a trinket. It was a message, a quiet, unexpected reminder that love leaves traces, even years later. And Charlotte felt those traces blooming in her heart. Charlotte sat on the garden bench, watching Abigail play with a handful of soft petals Aaron plucked for her. The morning sun cast a warm glow across the yard, giving everything a gentle brightness. She held the coin between her fingers, reflecting on the journey that brought them here. There had been heartbreak, grief, misunderstanding, fear, but also healing, growth, and rediscovery. She looked at Aaron, who seemed more grounded than ever. His posture, his reactions, his attentiveness, it all reflected a man who had found his place. "You know," Charlotte began softly, "I once thought resilience meant holding everything together without breaking." Aaron listened closely. "But now I realize resilience is knowing when to bend, when to rest, when to trust again. It's not about never falling. It's about getting up with purpose." Aaron nodded. "You've done that every step of the way." Charlotte smiled. We both have. She thought about the months after her mother's passing, how heavy her grief was, how abandoned she felt, how determined she had been to keep moving even when the world felt unsteady. She thought of Aaron, how broken he looked the day he confessed his fears, how much strength it took for him to face his mistakes, how patient he had been through their rebuilding. She thought of Marcus, his misguided choices, his learning, his willingness to apologize. And she thought of her mother, gone but present, absent but still guiding. Charlotte whispered, "Resilience isn't just surviving. It's choosing to love again, even when your heart remembers the pain." Aaron sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "We're stronger now because we faced it." Charlotte rested her head against him. "Yes, we learned what loyalty really means." Abigail squealed again, and Charlotte laughed. "And that little girl, she's our proof that life keeps giving reasons to keep going." Aaron kissed Charlotte's forehead. "We have a future to build." She nodded. "A beautiful one." That afternoon, while Abigail napped, Charlotte returned to her home office to sort through the last stack of her mother's estate files. She had put this box off for months, not because she dreaded the work, but because opening it felt like touching the final pieces of her mother's life. The box contained old folders, receipts from the early years of the community center, diagrams of programs her mother once envisioned, and clipped newspaper articles about neighborhood events. Near the bottom, Charlotte noticed an envelope, yellowed, sealed, her name written across the front in her mother's handwriting. Her hands trembled. She whispered, "Mom." She sat slowly at the desk, inhaled deeply, and opened the envelope with delicate care. A folded letter slipped into her lap. She unfolded it, tears rising before the first word registered. "My dearest Charlotte," the letter began, "if you're reading this, life has carried you into a season where you need truth, comfort, and direction." Charlotte's breath shook. "I know you. You love deeply, you lead strongly, and you carry burdens in silence. But one day, you will face challenges that test your heart. Challenges in love, in family, in purpose." Charlotte covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. "You will question your strength. You will question the people around you. You will question whether love is worth fighting for." Her chest tightened. "But I want you to remember something. The strongest love is not the one that avoids storms, but the one that grows through them. Do not fear the moments that break you open. They allow room for truth." Charlotte clutched the letter closer. "I know you'll love someone with your whole heart. I know you'll build a family rooted in compassion. And I know you have the courage to forgive when forgiveness is deserved, and to walk away when it is not." Charlotte's tears fell onto the page. "You will carry my legacy forward, not in wealth, but in the way you touch lives. Lead with grace, love with honesty, and never forget, resilience runs in your blood." The last line undid her completely. "Charlotte, fight for the love that fights for you." Charlotte sobbed gently, unable to hold back the wave of emotion. Aaron rushed in, alarmed, but when he saw her holding the letter, he knelt beside her. "What is it?" he whispered. "It's from Mom," Charlotte choked out. She knew. She knew everything I'd go through. She believed in me before I even knew how to believe in myself." Aaron wrapped his arms around her as she cried into his shoulder. In that moment, surrounded by old papers, new purpose, and a future waiting to be built, Charlotte felt her mother's presence more clearly than ever, not watching from afar, but walking with her. Charlotte stood at the doorway of the community center, Abigail resting peacefully in her carrier, Aaron steady at her side. She looked at the mural of her mother glowing softly under the evening lights. Her mother planted seeds in the world. Charlotte watered them, and now a new generation would grow from those roots. Her journey had been painful, beautiful, messy, and transformative. She discovered truths she wasn't ready for, survived heartbreaks she didn't deserve, found strength she didn't know she had, and rebuilt a family she thought she had lost. But she learned something powerful. Love isn't about perfection. It's about endurance, commitment, honesty, and the willingness to rise after falling. Charlotte kissed Abigail's forehead and whispered, "Your grandmother saw this future before I ever did, and now we're living it." Aaron took her hand and smiled. "We're building something she'd be proud of." Charlotte nodded, grateful. "We all are." Then she turned to the viewers, her heart open and full. Thank you for watching Mr. Michael's stories. If this journey moved you, please like, share, subscribe, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful stories to life.